Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for June 15, 2025. We're going to look at some 2025 fantasy football rankings from one of the most accurate experts out there, then possibly do a mock draft at the end. Before we begin, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, I'm wearing something from the merch store. It's the 801 AMC shirt. This is financial advice. Do not invest in AMC. This is from a while ago, but still like the shirt though. You can get that as well as many other things in the merch store. We now have a 15% discount. We have aprons, we have tons of shirts, we have mugs. You could turn these shirts into hoodies, sweatshirts, tank tops for women. A lot of options on here. Or you can go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one is Jerks to the College Years, where I just made fun of people, which, if you guys want to read something like that, I think you'd have a good time. Otherwise, please consider super chats, super stickers. That's the best way to support the show. John Sanders and Slew have been the best helping us out. But, I mean, really, and also like Armac, Karmic, The Boss, Degeneron, Can't Make an Eagle, Evan Daniel. You guys have been so awesome. I can't say enough because YouTube doesn't really pay much. So you guys are the ones who really keep the show going. All right, we're joined by Ben Wasley of FFDFantasyFootball.com, who, according to Fantasy Pros, was the most accurate mock drafter in the world this year. Ben, how's it going?
Good. It's good to be here. Look, according to Fantasy Pros, yes, but we all know that Walt and Charlie, the Kings, are just feet at the trough of their information and got lucky this year. It's good to finally be back on. It's been the first time since the draft, hopefully the first of many.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 months now. It's been a long time. Always wondering what you're up to now that it's the off season, and so I enjoy talking fantasy football with you. Not just because you're most accurate with the mock drafts. You're in the top 10 consistently in the weekly rankings as well. So always love having your insights on here. And I wanted to get your rankings for 2025, which we have here on the screen right now. So we're going to do redraft rankings and go by position. So we're going to start off with quarterbacks, and as we read through these and analyze them, if you guys have any comments, questions, just feel free to drop them. Doesn't have to be about football. You can ask Ben about Australia, which we get some questions from time to time. All right, so redraft rankings for those just listening. I'll read some of these out. So you have Lamar Jackson, number 1, the Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts to round out the top 5, and then Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray to finish the top 10. So, I mean, the first thing I have to ask you is Jackson over Allen. I feel like it's super close. I think I've seen them go both ways. So why Jackson over Allen, and how close is it for you?
So first thing worth mentioning is that I consider this 4-point passing touchdowns, which actually does make a big difference for some of these guys, especially someone like a Joe Burrow, using the Fantasy Pro standard. And for me, Jackson and Allen are just really close. I think ultimately in a draft, I'm very rarely going to take either of them when they're both available. I'm probably just going to wait to see which one falls. Maybe if I kind of on the way through the third round and they're both there, I might pick one if they're starting to fall. But I just slightly favor Jackson. I feel like his legs are more reliable. But the biggest issue for me with Josh Allen is the wide receivers are so weak at the moment. I'm concerned about the impact that not having Amari Cooper there is going to have, whether they're going to bring in people with enough strength to make that work. If they're going with the current wide receiver, then I feel like Josh Allen could really fall.
You're not impressed with Joshua Palmer, their big signing this offseason? Yeah, maybe
if he starts, I'm concerned. And I think he probably will as well.
He probably will. You know what? Maybe Keon Coleman makes a jump in his second year. We'll get to your receiver rankings soon. I've heard some people like Keon Coleman. A couple people we've had on the show. So I from what you just said, I guess you don't. But I agree with you.
I love Keon Coleman. I really do. The problem is, do the Bills love Keon Coleman? That's the real question. And does Josh Allen love Keon Coleman? Because I think he should have been used way more last year, and he wasn't. So if they actually use him properly, he can be the alpha guy. But even without that, I'm still concerned about the weapons they have relative to what they've had in the past and what that does to Allen's totals.
It's definitely fair about that. So it's very close to me. And you said third round. To me, I have not taken these guys before 305 when I've done my drafts. Today, I did a draft today. Lamar Jackson fell to, I think, 312. That's the latest I've seen him fall. And if I had that pick, I would have taken him. I had 306, I believe, and I had like 2 players ahead of him. So if those 2 were off the board, I would have gone with Jackson. I have Allen, same range, and then you have Jaden Daniels, Jaden Daniels is like going round 4 consistently for me. I'm not taking him there. Hurts has and Burrow I've taken in the middle of round 5. Do you agree with like where you would take those guys as well?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend a little bit on roster construction and scoring settings and things like that. But assuming you've got really standard, normal PPR, 4-point passing touchdown league, that's the sort of range I'd be looking at them in. I generally, most years, will just look for the end of a tier. And for me, those top 5 are in one tier. I think Jackson and Allen are kind of like in the A part of the tier, and Daniels, Burrow, and Hurts are in the B part of the tier. So there's a bit of a gap there, but for me, there's a big gap between Hurts and Mayfield, especially in a 4-point passing touchdown league. So that's what I'm looking for. Whichever one of those 5 falls out last is probably the guy that I'm looking to take, as long as it's in the right range.
I completely agree. I think the top 5 are in their own category. I think there's a huge drop to Mayfield. And with Mayfield, he was great last year, but he lost his offensive coordinator. Chris Godwin's injured. Granted, they re-signed him, but still, they did draft Ibuka, so we'll see what happens with him. But Evans is getting older. He's in his 30s now. So there's enough questions with Mayfield where I just have him like way lower than everyone else. But like he's probably number 6 for me as well. And then you have Mahomes, who today I should tweeted this out. He dropped to 809. It's the latest I've seen him drop. Do you where would you take Mahomes? With and you have him 7, so you think he's going to be a mid-tier QB1. So where would you take Mahomes if you're drafting right now?
It's really tough because the gap you're likely to get out of Mahomes and the rest of the top 12 quarterbacks probably isn't very large. It's just a question of who actually ends up being a top 12 quarterback this year. And I think the confidence I have in Mahomes being somewhere in the top 12 is a lot higher than the confidence I have in someone like a Caleb Williams or a Kyler Murray, who probably should be there. But you can definitely see a situation where either of them could have a terrible year. With Mahomes, he's still kind of locked in as a top 12 quarterback, simply because of how that offense runs and how much they rely on him. So for that reason, I think I would probably be waiting into those middle rounds towards the 7th round, 8th round. But it tends to be pretty rare for me that I take a quarterback there unless I've already got my running backs and wide receivers pretty much sorted. And I don't love any of the tight ends. So 7th round probably I think would be fair.
Yeah, I personally have not drafted Mahomes in any draft I've done so far. I've done like 60 drafts so far. I have not. I'm not taking him once. Although I had a guest on once, and he said to take Mahomes. So that was the only time I have him. So I have him like less than 2% of drafts so far. The other guy I wanted to ask you before we move on to the 11 to 20 is Jared Goff. How much of a drop did you have for him, given what's happened this offseason? I mean, first we saw Ben Johnson leave, and then Kevin Zeitler departed, which is, it's just fine. Like they drafted a guard early, but then Frank Ragnow retired. So feels like it's kind of like the Murphy's Law of off seasons for the Lions. Would you have Goff higher than this if none of this happened, or would you is like 8 the natural spot for him?
I think this is still a pretty natural spot. I think everyone in this range comes with quite a bit of risk. I certainly would have him higher and probably in the same tier as a Mayfield and Mahomes if they still had a Ben Johnson, if they still had that same O-line. I think they'll still be able to make the O-line work. I think they just have so many weapons, and the offense will naturally be pretty aggressive. That Goff is going to score, but there is that concern that if things aren't quite as good as they were last year, potentially they start to lean on the run game a lot more. And we know that Goff can have these really bad off games, like that 5 interception game he randomly had a year or 2 ago. Like that sort of thing can happen with Goff, which makes him a little bit scary to roster in fantasy. You're always going to get a little bit more variability with him because they do have that capacity to just run the ball all game. But for me, he's still safer than anyone else outside this top 10.
Okay. Yeah, I have not drafted Goff at all. Zero drafts in about 60. He and Kyler Murray are the only 2 guys I have not drafted in your top 10. With Kyler Murray, I feel like the injuries are just too much of a risk for me. He stayed healthy last year, to his credit, but it's the first time in his career. I don't really trust it to happen again. That's like nothing to do with talent or there's a sporting cast. It's really just availability for me. It's a big concern for me. So.
I think with Kyler, it depends where you're getting him. Like if you're getting him middle rounds where you're essentially filling your bench with upside guys, Kyler's essentially an upside guy. He might hit based on injuries, based on how the offense is going. But that's the same case with anyone you're drafting in the 9th, 10th, 11th round. You're always going to be taking guys who are essentially bench guys who you're hoping will hit, but a lot of the time they won't.
Yeah, for sure. Fantasy Dog says number 5, like, already subscribed. Love Baker 6. Thank you so much, Fantasy Dog, for liking and already subscribing. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get to 11 through 30 here. So again, I'm going to read. I'll go to the top 20, and then it's too many names to keep reading. But for those just listening, 11 Bo Nix, 12 Justin Fields, 13 Dak Prescott, 14 JJ McCarthy, 15 Justin Herbert, 16 Brock Purdy, 17 Jordan Love, no cookie Jordan Love, 18 CJ Stroud, 19 Tua Tagovailoa, 20 Trevor Lawrence, and a couple names to note. 21 is Anthony Richardson, 22 is Drake May, and then you have 28 is Cam Ward. And then 29 Aaron Rodgers, and then your number 30 guy is Tyler Shuck. So, okay, so nothing really surprises me here. I have drafted Stafford a lot because he's going like 12th round, and I usually like if I draft Nakua, I'll try to get Stafford. Outside of that, I drafted Cam Ward a lot too, like 13th, 14th round, just because of his upside. I think that's like the one guy I probably disagree with you most here. I think I have Cam Ward like 19 or 20. And I could probably like swap him with Tua just because I really don't trust Tua to stay healthy at all. And that Miami offensive line really scares me. But outside of that, like I agree with your rankings. So do you want to like point anything out here?
I will come back to the Ward thing, but for me, the two guys that I'm actually targeting here would be someone like a Justin Fields and a JJ McCarthy. They're just very risky. Fields, there's always a risk he doesn't even keep his job. I know there's less threat here than there was last year, but the upside is always massive with anyone who can run a lot in fantasy. And the reality is that Fields is ultimately a passing running back. That's really what you're getting with him. And if he has a really good year, he could easily put up 800,000 rushing yards. And that's so reliable to have on a weekly basis. I know that the Jets offense isn't great, but you're going to see a lot of Fields scrambling. And it's not like the run game is so elite that it's going to take him totally out of the game otherwise. So Fields has a lot of upside, but a massive flaw for me. So in a super flex, Fields is considerably lower for me because you need a reliable quarterback that you know is going to perform. On the other hand, in a 1 QB league, all of a sudden Fields, potentially I could take him as high as 8, depending on how big a swing I'm willing to take in that situation. Same thing with JJ McCarthy. He could be totally useless. We've never seen him play in the NFL, but we've seen what Minnesota quarterbacks can do. We know how much upside they have on a yearly basis. So for that reason, if McCarthy performs like a Kirk Cousins, like a Sam Darnold, all of a sudden you've got a guy who's going to be an absolute stud for fantasy based on the range where you're getting him. So they're the two upside guys for me. Cam Ward concerns me because of the lack of really good passing options and the fact that I think this offense is just generally going to struggle again this year. He'll probably get some garbage time stuff a la Blake Bortles from a couple of years ago, for example. But do you think he's going to run enough to make up for the lack of passing, for example? Is that why you've got him higher?
Well, I'll say this about Tennessee. I actually think their offense is a little underrated. They signed Kevin Zeitler and Dan Moore to help their offensive line, and they're going to move Latham to right tackle, which is where he should have been in the first place. So I think their offensive line is going to be better. Calvin Ridley we've seen him perform on a high level when the situation has been good. I mean, he had some big games last year with Levis and Rudolph. So I feel like Cam Ward should be an upgrade. They have Pollard and Spears at running back. So for Tennessee, I think the reason they're going to be terrible this year is because of the defense. The defense looks awful. And that should help their offense. I mean, they're like you said, Bortles, circa what year was that, 2013 or 2014? Like that could be Cam Ward this year, just putting up garbage time numbers in the fourth quarter. So for me, and plus he had the rushing ability too. So that I just feel like there's spike week potential, which like what I'm talking about with is like the drafting is best ball, and you're looking for like spike week potential. So that's why I like Cam Ward. Like, he's going to have some dud weeks for sure. He's a rookie, And as far as like the upgrades, like they're nice, but they still don't have like an elite options outside of Ridley. Well, Ridley's not really elite either, but still like the number 2 receivers like Tyler Lockett. Like that's not good. So there are holes on the team for sure, but I think their offense will be a lot better this year, especially in garbage time. So I just like Ward as the 3rd quarterback in like round 13, round 14, just get upside. But I can see your point about like I don't think you want him as someone you're relying on. Like if he's your, like I said, I was like my 19th quarterback. Like I definitely don't want him as my starting quarterback. But like in leagues where I'm trying to carry 2 quarterbacks, then I think that he makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. In a best ball, I certainly like him a little bit better because he's going to have that upside. In a super flex league, I think it's risky because you don't really know what you're going to get from him. You at least have more security with the others. You're going to get these guys late regardless. I guess the question is, who do you think is going to be their receivers outside Ridley? Do you think Lockett holds on to the number 2 role? Do they just use Van Jefferson as a mainly blocking guy? Do one of the rookies come in?
they all suck. Outside of Ridley, like is Io Manor, like maybe like I keep seeing him like pop up in the 17th or 18th round of these drafts I'm doing. I'm like, and I even have Cam Warner. Like I don't want this guy, So I don't know. I've not drafted any Titan outside of Ward and Ridley. Maybe a couple of drafts of Chiggy Bang Bang, but outside of that, I haven't drafted any Titans players. So I just think with his running ability plus Ridley, Okonkwo's not bad, and then the offensive line like feels like they should be able to score points against defenses that are not elite, and they get the Jaguars twice, they get the Colts twice, so there should be good games for him.
Do you think DK gets involved? Like how do you rate him against Imanol?
Well, who'd you say?
They've got 2 4th-round rookies. Who do you think is the one that's actually got more chance?
Oh, Cameron DK. Oh, yeah. Well, I had Io Manor rated higher than DK. Like I was kind of surprised that he went in the 4th round, but I don't know. Maybe he surprises and does well. They also have Restrepo, who like I thought would be drafted in like the 4th or 5th round. So maybe he will do well. I don't know. Like I don't think any of these guys will pan out necessarily. Like maybe one of them will surprise us, but it's still I think there's enough there that I would like him as a QB2 instead of QB3. But but like my thought process here is more best ball than redraft. So and I guess we're doing redraft rankings, huh? So maybe I should adjust my thought process. Fantasy Dog saying Purdy just ahead of Prescott. That's about it. T-Law higher. I like Trevor Lawrence to bounce back this year. He's got potentially 2 number 1s. Thomas we know is one, and then we'll see what they have in Travis Hunter, but he could be great. Offensive line is not bad. It's not great, but not bad. And they have Liam Cohen coaching the team now, so you would expect him to be better. What scares me about Lawrence is like Fantasy Dog also says playoff schedule is important. I don't know if you saw the playoff schedule for the Jaguars. They play the Jets and the Broncos in the playoffs. So you like, especially at Brian Thomas, he has to go against Sauce Gardner and Patrick Surtain in the playoffs, which is pretty rough. Not that I would avoid him for that, but it's just like it just kind of sucks. You're gonna hope that one of those guys is injured. But any thoughts to what Fantasy Dog says, including the 30 or the
on playoff schedule and schedule difficulty in general? I totally ignore it. I do not look at it at all. The reason I don't look at it is because we are really bad at understanding what matchups are going to be difficult going into the season. About 5 or 6 weeks in, we have a fantastic idea of who is going to be good defensively, but we're terrible at doing it entering the season. Our ability to project what is going to be a difficult QB matchup is nearly random. It's surprisingly close to random. I did a regression analysis on it a couple of years ago, and it was not statistically significant in any way whatsoever. So looking at playoff schedule in particular is going to be a little bit pointless because you're ultimately taking a really small sample size and projecting it out and making it into something significant. It's not. There's a good chance that whoever you draft, especially in the 20s, isn't even going to be on your team if you're talking about redraft, because you're probably going to cycle your team through bye weeks and injuries and other stuff. So I would not even be remotely considering playoff schedule. Having said that, I can see the upside for Trevor Lawrence. And I can understand what you're saying with Purdy. My concern with Purdy in general is that with Christian McCaffrey back, potentially they just run the ball a heap. They could get away with running the ball a lot. And that lowers his ceiling, I guess, for me. And it also lowers his weekly floor as well. There are going to be those weeks where they just don't need to use Purdy. They don't need to throw the ball. They can just rely on their defense and get away with running it. So that's why I've got Purdy lower than Dak, where I feel like they're kind of set up to really have to pass the ball in Dallas.
Yeah, so I agree with that. We'll see if McCaffrey stays healthy, and so I can't wait to see where you have him. So we'll do that in a second.
You're going to find out. Do you want to make a prediction before we get there?
What'd you say?
Do you want to make a prediction before we get there where I've got McCaffrey?
Yeah. Well, just based on what you said, I think you're bullish on him. I'm gonna guess you have him third. But don't tell me. We'll have that reveal. One second. I wanted to tell you my top 5 highest exposed quarterbacks. 5 is Justin Herbert. 4 is Cam Ward. 3, JJ McCarthy. 2, Brock Purdy. 1, Matthew Stafford. So obviously you're going to have later guys because you're not always going to take the early guys. But like I said, I take Stafford a lot because of Nakua. Unfortunately, Alec Jackson had those the blood clots, so I'm not as high on Stafford anymore. But I agree with McCarthy. Like, he has so much upside. We saw what Sam Darnold did last year. Like, they have so much talent on that roster. Just seems like McCarthy should do very well. All right, I think that we're done with our quarterbacks here. The one last thing I wanted to ask you: you had Richardson instead of Daniel Jones. Do you have any thoughts to inserting Daniel Jones instead of Richardson, given the injuries?
The main reason for that is I feel like Richardson just offers you a higher ceiling. I feel like with that rushing floor, if Richardson starts and he hits, and I think he's considered nominally the starter by them at this point in time, I feel like all of a sudden you've got a fantasy stud. That's not going to be the case with Daniel Jones. Even if Daniel Jones starts in that offense, you're still talking about a guy who's going to be a QB2. If Richardson starts and he even looks reasonable, I think we can expect QB1 numbers. So it's more of an upside thing. Depending on the league, there are going to be situations where I'm absolutely not touching him. But if he's more of like a bench option in a 1 QB league, then I'm definitely taking him late.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get to your running backs. And okay, that was close. You have Christian McCaffrey, number 2. So top 10, Saquon Barkley, number 1, Christian McCaffrey, number 2. 3 is Bijan Robinson. 4, Jahmyr Gibbs. 5, Derrick Henry. 6, Ashton Genty. 7, Jonathan Taylor. 8, Josh Jacobs. 9, Devon Achane. And then 10, Bucky Irving. So, I mean, I have to ask you about McCaffrey. I have not drafted McCaffrey yet. He was going like early round 2. He was going like 201, 202, 203. Maybe like 112 once in a while. This is like a few weeks ago, but now he's kind of like catapulted up to like 106, 107, 108 range. In fact, he went 102 in one league in one draft that I did. So what are your thoughts here on McCaffrey? Because I mean, obviously Barkley is going to clear cut number 1. So what are your thoughts on McCaffrey?
I do know the argument that you can only really lose your league in the first round, but I don't agree. I feel like with someone like a McCaffrey, you could end up getting 50, 60, 70 more fantasy points by the end of the season compared to a lot of the guys around him. If he has a good year, and he has had a lot of good years in the past, bouncing back from bad years, I feel like the upside is absolutely huge with him. I just don't see that same upside with a Bijan or a Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs is naturally going to be capped in how many carries he gets. You're kind of hoping for a David Montgomery injury. Bijan is just less efficient on a per carry basis. On the other hand, McCaffrey, so efficient, such a big part of that offense. They just outright say that they're going to give him as many carries as they can. And they definitely will do, assuming he comes into the season healthy. And I think he probably does.
So I think I would take McCaffrey over everyone here except for Barkley and Bijan. So he would be 3 right now for me. But I always say this, though, like I would say that you can't win your fantasy draft in the first 2 rounds because there are going to be so many people who draft great players, but you can lose your draft in the first 2 rounds. And like if you take a guy who gets injured or just like really struggles due to regression, like that, you're just going to lose because like you're not going to have the elite guy that like half your league has. And I feel like if you take like McCaffrey feels like a league losing player. Now I get what you're saying about the upside. I agree. I think Barkley has that same upside, but I totally agree with what you're saying that like McCaffrey is more upside than every other player on this list. But like I feel like if you're like ranking the floors, I think his floor is the lowest. Maybe you want to put Derrick Henry there because he's older too. He's like, what is he, 31 now? But no, I think McCaffrey's definitely the lowest. He played just 4 games last year, and he has an extensive injury history. So I don't know. I just don't trust him to stay healthy. Like I think out of all the guys, like you tell me, like there's going to be one guy who misses the most games on this list. I think it's McCaffrey. Like, do you agree with that?
Probably yes, but for me in fantasy in general, I mean, only 1 out of the 12 teams wins your league most of the time. So I would rather shoot to be that 1 out of the 12 rather than having a safe take. I'm nearly always going to go for upside over safety because I'm all about winning the league rather than trying to come top 3, top 4. And I feel like McCaffrey gives you the best chance of doing that. If, on the other hand, you have a slightly different perspective where you actually just want security, you want to go for top 3, top 4, you've got a lot of leagues and you're just trying to make sure that you're towards the top of every league and trying to maximize your chances of winning. That's a very different situation where I can imagine saying that a Bijan's a lot safer, a Jahmyr Gibbs is relatively safe as well. So I can see an argument for that as well. I do also think that someone like an Ashton Genty is actually massively safe. I know it sounds like a weird thing to say for when someone who's never played in the NFL. I'm sure we'll talk about this probably next time I'm on when we go through running back hit rates. But rookie running backs taken in the top 10 in particular have an unbelievably high hit rate. Like everyone taken in the last 15 years has had a top 5 fantasy season at some stage in their career, every single one. So you are expecting that at some stage, Genty is going to have a top 5 fantasy finish. And there's a very good chance it happens in his first year. So Genty has a lot of upside as well.
I agree with that. However, Pete Carroll kind of, I don't know if you heard his quote recently, where he called, did you hear what he called Genty and Raheem Mostert?
Look, Pete Carroll says all sorts of stuff, but I'm guessing he said he called them something like a 1-2 punch.
He called them thunder and lightning. Yeah. So I like it tells me he wants to run the ball with Raheem Mostert. I don't know if I believe that. We had Charlie was saying that there's a lot of nepotism with the Raiders because Pete Carroll's son is the run game coordinator, and like I felt like everything they did in the draft was to help the run game, including taking Genty with the first pick. So I don't know. I think like first couple weeks you might see like a little more Mostert than you would like, and I feel like people will complain. And then by like week 4 or 5, this could be all Genty. Like, I think you could probably see something like that. We saw that in Atlanta, and granted, that was pretty terrible coaching. But when they drafted Bijan Robinson, who was a better prospect than Genty, they played Algier a lot. And then in Detroit, you had David Montgomery handling workload. Now, I would rate Algier and Montgomery way better than Mostert at this point in his career. So that's why I think it's going to be Genty mostly. But I think like first few weeks, like Genty owners might be a little annoyed by Mostert, but I think that'll disappear. Like as soon as the Raiders realize this guy's done,
100% agree.
Yeah. Okay. So Jahmyr Gibbs is someone I am avoiding. Same with I don't think I've drafted lines like at all. I drafted St. Brown once or twice. I drafted Gibbs a couple of times before the actual NFL draft. And like I said, I never drafted Goff. Gibbs with that offensive line being in shambles, their tackles are great, but the interior blocking looks pretty bad right now, which is unusual for Detroit lately. I mean, the Lions like kind of, they've kind of made it like a sticking point to improve their offensive line. That's how they got so good in the first place recently. But they lost Zeitler, they lost Ragnow. Just feels like the interior is a huge question mark, and that's why I've downgraded Gibbs. So, I mean, do you want to talk about that? Like, why you have number 4?
Yeah, I mean, we know they wanted to go for Booker in the draft, for example, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Their interior O-line is very poor. I am nervous about it, but I also think that we're going to see that because of that, it's going to be Montgomery getting less carries because he's less effective with a weaker O-line. You actually end up seeing more Gibbs, but it's more on checkdowns and things like that, and that's fantastic for fantasy because all of a sudden you're getting those PPR points on top of the touches as well. So I could see a situation where even the O-line struggling actually helps Gibbs. So I'm for that reason, I'm kind of okay with it regardless.
I agree with these. I think Montgomery takes the biggest fall this year, especially with Ben Johnson gone, because Johnson loved using multiple running backs. We don't know what Johnny Morton's going to do, the new coordinator. Maybe he'll do the same thing, but I do think Montgomery, like he's someone I don't even consider. Like Gibbs, I at least like consider, like Montgomery is just like off the board for me where he's going in the draft right now. Everything else, I like everything else here. Achane scares me with his being how brittle he is, and that Miami offensive line, but his upside is through the roof too. So I can definitely get behind taking him. I don't think I've taken him very much though. Let's see, he's I've taken him in 2% of drafts, so not super high on him. I like Bucky Irving more than Achane. I put him over him. I put Irving over Achane. Other than that, I like your rankings.
I also think it's worth mentioning there's a massive teardrop between Jacobs and Achane for me.
Okay.
I do think that there is a lot of risk with Achane. I'm concerned about this offense generally being poor again, and that's really hurting the run game. So I can imagine the run game really struggling, and Achane will be the one that suffers because he really did get by on efficiency in his rookie season. Mm-hmm. And when that efficiency dropped away last year, it didn't look anywhere near as good.
Yeah, they did sign James Daniels, but they lost Terran Armstead to retirement. So, I have Irving in that tier with Jacobs and Taylor, and then I agree I have Achane below that. So, all right, let's get to the next slide here. So, 11 Kyren Williams, then James Conner, Chase Brown, James Cook, Joe Mixon, Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, R.J. Harvey, Omarion Hampton, Isaiah Pacheco, Tony Pollard, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Brian Robinson Jr. I love Chase Brown. I think I'd put Chase. I think I'd even have Chase Brown in the top 10 personally. I think he's gonna be awesome this year. James Cook is a concern because the holdout. I think he'll eventually play. Like there's no way he's gonna get the $15 million per year he's asking for. Like that's insane. And then plus there's touchdown regression. So he's going 4th round. I drafted him a little bit, but that worries me. And then Max says I think I have Hampton over Harvey now with Dobbins addition. So did that account for so you have Harvey 23? Did that account for the Dobbins signing?
No.
Okay.
There are a couple of moves I would make here. I would consider moving Mixon down because of the Nick Chubb addition. I would consider moving. In fact, I definitely will move Harvey down with the addition of Dobbins as well. Probably not very far. Having said that, because I do feel like they're going to give him opportunities. But I do definitely think that I have Hampton above him because they're both ultimately in committees now, where I think that they both have a chance to win out. But I like Hampton's chances of winning out better.
Me too. Although I'm always concerned about rookie running backs. You mentioned the top 10 hit rate, which is super high, but I believe from talking to you last year, like the second half of first round hit rate is pretty low. It's at least lower than people think. So yeah, that worries me. I don't like Harvey. I don't like Harvey as a player. I had him in like the 4th or 5th round of my mock draft, and he went 2nd round. He reminds me of Miles Sanders. Like if he gets in the open field, it can make anyone miss. But like his vision's bad, and he needs like a great line to open up things for him. But like Denver has good blocking, so I don't think he's going to do bad necessarily. I just don't think he's like that good of a player. Let's see what else you have here. Aaron Jones versus DeAndre Swift. I've had this dilemma many times in my drafts. Like I get to the 7th round, both are available. I feel like I flip flop based on what I have, or just like, oh, I took Swift last time. Let me take Jones here. I think they're very similar situations where they're obviously same division, but their offensive lines have improved a lot this offseason. And so I think they're both going to have very good years. And they're both injury-prone players. Like they both have a checkered injury history. So I'm pretty lost in that regard. Like who do I take? And you have Jones over Swift barely, but I don't know. Like if you had any further insight on that, like why Jones over Swift?
I mean, I will firstly say that I've got to be honest. Everyone from about James Cook downwards, I hate. Like,
okay.
I hate all of these players. Like,
wow.
Not on a personal level, obviously. But I can see so many issues with so many of them. But you have to take them so early in drafts to get your hands on most of these guys. I would much rather wait to see who falls because I just have so many concerns. Thanks, Mac. Because I just have so many concerns about so many of these guys. I think that Swift and Jones arguably have a lot of upside, But so many other players here have upside as well. I said, like Alvin Kamara easily could be a top 10 player, but he easily could be totally useless this year. And where you have to take him in drafts, that's not really a risk I want to take. Same thing with Joe Mixon. He could have a massive amount of volume, or we could see a heap of Nick Chubb, and Woody Marks could get all the receiving work. James Cook could all of a sudden drop down with a whole lot more Ray Davis, for example, and Ty Johnson taking all the third downs. Like every player here has risk, and it only gets worse the lower down you get, where you end up with a whole heap of true committee backs. So I think I'm just going to be looking for a player to fall and give me value rather than going out of my way to actually look for one of these guys.
What about Chuba Hubbard, as Armac is suggesting? I think that he's pretty safe to me. Like Rico Doodle's not going to, we call him Doodle on the show. He's not going to take his workload, I don't think. And Carolina's offensive line run blocks very well. So like, do you like Hubbard a little bit more? I mean, you have him above those other guys.
Yeah, I think there's a flaw there. I think there's a far lower upside than most of these guys. I think the chances of him being, for example, a top 5 back is lower. You could see an Alvin Kamara or a Breece Hall, or we saw it last year with James Cook. You'd see them all being top 5 backs. Find it hard to believe with Chuba Hubbard. I'm also concerned they insist on continually drafting running backs. Obviously, they've done it in the last couple of years, and we're not talking early rounds, but they didn't need to draft one at all. I don't understand why they got ETN. It seems to suggest they're just not fully convinced by Hubbard, especially because they'd already brought Dowdle in. Why bring in another back? It just didn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah. So we talked about scheduling as well. Alvin Kamara's schedule, by the way, he plays the Panthers, the Jets, and the Titans to close out the season. And the Jets may sound tough until you remember that they're great against the pass and terrible against the run. Now, as you said, it's hard to predict like the schedule wise and how good teams are going to be. I think it's easier to predict teams are going to be bad than good, because we think we know who the great defenses are, but one or two injuries could just derail them. Whereas like teams that we think are going to be terrible defensively are probably going to be terrible defensively. Like the Bengals, for example. Like I'd be shocked if they have a good defense. Like any team playing the Bengals, I think at the end is a plus. So Kamara's schedule at the end is nice. The problem is like, is he going to be healthy by then? It's an unknown. And I really don't like taking players from bad offenses. Just like something I try to avoid. So I could see why like Kamara is appealing to some, but the Saints could be so bad by the end of the year that they just give the ball to their young running backs instead. Like why feed Kamara if they're 2-12, like or 3-11? Like why would they do that? They could just give the ball to Kendrick Miller or Devin Neal. So that's what scares me about Kamara, and I really haven't drafted him all that much.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a long history of veteran players getting minor injuries and getting shut down for the season because the team sucks. That happens all the time, and I think that's a massive risk with someone like an Alvin Kamara, where there's a very low chance of them making the playoffs and a far higher chance they just shut him down for the season. On the schedule thing, the biggest concern for me is not our ability to project which defenses are good. It's to project how the defense is going to be structured, because often the team will recognize we're really bad against the run last year. We need to get a lot better against the run. They'll focus on that at the expense of their pass defense, and all of a sudden you want to target their wide receivers when previously you wanted to target their running backs. That flip-flopping happens a surprising amount as well. So even though I agree those teams are probably going to have bad defenses later in the year, we don't know in what way they're going to have bad defenses, and that's what makes it really hard to project for fantasy.
We saw that last year in season with the Ravens. First half of the year, they're awful against the pass. And so they moved Kyle Hamilton from linebacker to safety. They improve against the pass, and then they can't stop the run at the end. Like we saw that from them in real time. So you're totally right about that. Although, like I said, with the Bengals, they're going to be bad at everything. So just play guys against the Bengals. You'll be fine. Isaiah Pacheco is the one guy I would have higher that you have at 25. He was awful to close out last year, but he was playing hurt. He came back, I think, too early, and he just looked like a shell of himself. I think he's going to rebound. Offensive line is a concern, but they drafted 2 tackles, so I don't think it should be too bad. Plus, they still have 2 good interior blockers. I mean, you're the Chiefs guy, so I want to talk to me about Pacheco at 25.
I think there's a lot of risk there. I think there are a lot of things that could go wrong for Pacheco. For example, he wasn't healthy at the end of last year, but that doesn't mean he's healthy now. We have no reason to believe he necessarily is. We know with running backs, these things can linger. I think also they've really targeted wide receiver help, and I think they will want to get Patrick Mahomes going better than they did last season. So it's entirely possible that we just don't see a lot of run game out of the Chiefs this year. I also don't think that Kareem Hunt totally disappears just with the way they like to do things. And I also kind of like Rashad Smith as a possible sleeper for someone that could be more heavily involved than we expect. I can imagine a situation where we see a lot more Smith. After all, they do have a history of using 7th round or at least late round running backs in the run game. And I can imagine a situation where this becomes a whole lot more of a committee than we want.
That's true. The last guy, the last on your list, Brian Robinson. I have not really drafted him, but like the thought popped into my head the other day where I'm like, I wonder if I have him too low, because last year heading into the season, there's more optimism on him. And like, he struggled last year. He was in a committee by the end of the year with like Jeremy McNichols, but he had 3 separate injuries. Like, he got hurt like every month of the season. Like September he got an injury, October got an injury, November got an injury. I feel like by the end of the season, he was just like walking wounded. And now he's healthy, and they drafted a right tackle, and they traded for Laramie Tunsil. I don't know. I think Brian Robinson is someone I might move up in my rankings a little bit. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm nervous about Brian Robinson because there's still Eckler there, because they weren't willing to give him an every down role late in the year when they had the opportunity to. If they see some improvements in the passing game from him, I can imagine situations where they want to use him more, but I think they're far more inclined to lean on a committee. And they don't even use their running backs that much in general anyway. They're more inclined to use Daniels with his legs rather than check down. They're more inclined to use Ertz in that middle area. I can see a lot of situations where Robinson's disappointing, and I think his ceiling is naturally capped by the type of player he is. I can't imagine him being a running back 1, for example. On the other hand, if you look at the guys ahead of him, if things go right, if they become the lead back in their offenses, all of them could easily be a top 10 running back. We've seen plenty of young Browns running backs be a top 10 option. We can imagine Travion Henderson all of a sudden being an every down back. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. And all of a sudden, that means top 10 upside. Caleb Johnson, if he gets the lead role in Pittsburgh, which he probably won't, top 10 running back. We saw that with Najee Harris a few years ago. So all the guys ahead of him have that top 10 upside. Robinson just plain doesn't.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so let's see. Walt is a Trump taint liquor. No Kings all over Philadelphia. Yeah, the paid protesters. Love that you were so hurt that you trashed my parents. I didn't trust your parents. I said that you were raised poorly. Looking forward to meeting your dumbass in public. Okay. This guy is clearly mentally disturbed, as you can see. So I just was trolling him, and I quote tweeted him, and then he responded to me. He's like, "My dad could beat up your dad," and then he blocked me like some 12-year-old girl. It's so funny. Anyway, let's get to okay. We have more running back rankings. All right, so I'm not going to read all these because some people might be listening, but it's kind of it's going to be too much to read. It starts at 31. Tyron Tracy. You have Najee Harris here. You had Hampton earlier. Zach Charbonnet, 33. Tank Bigsby's Kenny's favorite mid to late round running back, 37. Ray Davis with James Cook situation is interesting, 38. Cam Scataba, who's like being drafted like 7th round sometimes, is 39. I just don't understand that at all. Jalen Warren. So you have Caleb Johnson over Jalen Warren. So he's 40. I love Garendo. I drafted him so much at 42 just because McCaffrey goes down. Like suddenly Garendo is great. Tyler Algier is 47. Blake Corum 49. And then Jordan Mason have a 50. So do you want to talk about like some of your favorite players on this list?
Absolutely. And of course, if you want to see the full rankings, because you're listening to this or just want to see more, ffdfantasyfootball.com. Now,
Nice.
I think it really depends on your situation here. If you're going 0 RB, some of these guys are going to be very valuable because they're going to give you a lot of quality early in the year. I think someone like a Javonte Williams, for example, I think he's going to be someone that's solid in a 0 RB situation to rely on to just get a reasonable amount of touches and get you that early year volume. Same thing with someone like a Najee Harris. I feel like they're going to be fine early in the year. Jalen Warren fits into that category too. On the other hand, most of the time, I'm going to be targeting upside guys. And I think the guys here with the most upside are Zach Charbonnet, who realistically is an injury away from being a top 10 back. We see that all the time. Anytime Kenneth Walker gets injured, all of a sudden Charbonnet becomes an absolute stud. I think the same thing remains the case with him. Someone like a Ray Davis, I think if James Cook goes down, Ray Davis just takes over that role, and he becomes a guy that arguably gets into the top 10 as well. And I can definitely see that exact same upside with Isaac Garendo. I think if there's an injury to CMC, and we know that Walt thinks there will be an injury to CMC, that suddenly means you've got a top 10 back there as well. Tyler Algier, similar situation. Marshall Lloyd, basically everyone below there. They're essentially an upside backup, and I love my upside backups. I will be filling my bench with 3-4 of these guys, depending on the type of league I'm in, because the upside is so huge.
Yeah, same here. I draft like 3 or 4 of them each league for sure. With Corum, I found myself drafting him like 17th round or so earlier. But I don't know if you heard the quote from Sean McVay. This was like during the draft in the draft room when they got Jarquez Hunter, where he said he was the one guy I wanted on day 3. So that kind of you're shaking your head. You don't like that?
Look, I don't understand it is the biggest issue I have. Like, they haven't even given Blake Corum a proper chance, and they drafted him earlier. It made no sense to me. I do actually have Hunter pretty high up my rookie rankings because, like you, I heard that and I was like, that's a little bit weird. But there's so much upside if something happens to Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams kind of sucks. So there is that ability for either of these guys to take over, and I think Corum gets at least the first chance.
Yeah. By the way, I'm happy you've Scatabo 39 and not like 19, where like a lot of people apparently have him. Like I said, he's gone 7th round in some drafts I've done. Like, he usually goes like 9th round, like above Charbonnet, for example. I don't understand it. I guess it's because people saw him do so well in that Arizona State Texas game. But I don't know. Like, is that the only reason? I think you're sane with this ranking.
I don't understand what people are seeing there. He's not the kind of guy who's going to play on every down anyway. He just gives them a bigger back, which they don't have at the moment. Tyron Tracy is explosive, but he's not exactly a big back they can use on the goal line. And Devin Singletary is one of the shortest backs to play as a starter in the NFL in the last 15 years. Realistically, they just needed a bigger back, and that's what Scatabo is. So I think that's why they drafted him. They drafted him on day 3. The success rate on day 3 running backs is not very high. Anyone going out of their way to get Scatabo just doesn't really understand how the NFL works in general.
Yeah, for sure. Ben, you made a big mistake coming on this loser show.
What?
Oh, man. He's the one posting here. I'll never post on his show. Anyway, we have our receiver rankings here. No surprise that Chase and Jefferson are 1-2. That's how they've been drafted in like every draft I've done so far. Then we have CeeDee Lamb 3, 4, Puka Nacua 5, Malik Neighbors 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown 7, Brian Thomas Jr. 8, Nico Collins 9, AJ Brown 10, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like that you have Jackson Smith and Jigba in the top 10. I love him this year. I think he's going too late right now. He's going like late round 3. I would take him a little bit earlier than that. Everything else like looks right to me. I was a little down on Lamb earlier. I just don't like the Dallas's offensive line, but he's still going to have some good games. I think Prescott bounces back a little bit this year. I really don't trust Brian Schottenheimer. Like, I think that's the big thing for me. But I did draft Lamb in the draft today. I think I like Nacua over him a little bit, but it's super close, so I could go either way there. But yeah, everything looks right to me. The only question I would have for you is Nico Collins with and I should have asked about CJ Stroud with like the shoulder soreness thing that's going on. Do you have any concern with Stroud's health? And I mean, that would obviously impact Collins.
I have a lot of concerns with Collins in general. They're clearly intent on bringing in 1 million wide receivers. I don't really understand why they're doing that. I didn't think it was necessary to take 2 on day 2. I think that was a bit weird. But Collins is still clearly the number 1 guy, and he looked really good last year. Stroud concerns me a little bit, but it's not like Stroud was great last year either. I feel like there's actually upside for Stroud to be better this year. So while I can certainly see that kind of lowers his floor a little bit, concerns around Stroud, but also just generally concerns about how many wide receivers are coming, I think his ceiling is top 5 wide receiver, because if Stroud actually plays like he did at times in his rookie season, all of a sudden Collins is going to be an absolute start, especially because Collins wasn't healthy all of last year either. Having said that, there is a pretty big gap for me between Brian Thomas and Collins, and there's also a big gap between Thomas and St. Brown. Thomas kind of gets his own little tier there. I'll probably be taking a whole lot of running backs before I'm thinking about a Collins or a Brown.
Interesting, because Collins and Thomas, like they usually go like back to back in every draft I do. So it's I think that's interesting to say that you said that Thomas goes earlier than Collins, or at least an earlier tier than Collins. I think AJ Brown's going a little too late. He's going like late second round. He was going late first round last year, so I'm like kind of confused about why he's going so much later now. And I've seen like people take Drake London over him, which I don't understand. And I'm glad you don't have Drake London in the top 10, because I've heard like so much love for Drake London this year. I don't get it. And I guess we're gonna see where you have him. I can't imagine he's like too late in your next slide, but like I really don't get London or Brown. Like Brown's upside is just way higher than London's.
Yeah, Brown had those 500-yard weeks in a row last year. There's certainly big upside. I think my biggest concern with Brown in general is he's kind of the third option in the offense. The first option is always Saquon Barkley, and the second option is kind of Jalen Hurts, in that he's going to run the ball sufficiently that it does hurt Brown a little bit. But when they're passing the ball, Brown is the guy. The problem is when all of Brown, Smith, and Goddard are healthy, they kind of hurt each other a little bit. They really only have three options in that passing offense. And when one of them's injured, it helps the other two massively. When two of them are injured, all of a sudden that third guy becomes an absolute stud. Brown will be massive next year if Smith is injured, and he'll also be helped if Goddard is injured. But if they all three stay healthy next year, I could see Brown being a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, he was hurt last year for weeks 2 to 4, so he missed time at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I mean, I still love him this year. Okay, my show does not take comments from Trump ball throating losets. Okay, well, we take comments from everyone. So we're a little bit more open-minded here. All right, 11 through 30. So yeah, London, yeah, as I suspected, he's pretty high here. Is 12. T. Higgins 11, Lad McConkey 13, then Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans 15, 16 Tyreek Hill, 17 DJ Moore, 18 Chris Godwin, 19 Devontae Adams, 20 Cortland Sutton, 21 Terry McLaurin, 22 Travis Hunter, 23 DK Metcalf, 24 Marvin Harrison Jr., 25 Zay Flowers, 26 Jameson Williams, 27 Rashee Rice, 28 Tedero McMillan, 29 Jordan Addison, 30 Calvin Ridley. I think the one name that stands out here is like the biggest discrepancy between your rankings and like where I see him going in the drafts I do is Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is going late round 2 right now, and you have him at 27. Have you made any like recent adjustments that are not here on Rice? Because I think like it was kind of sort of announced that he's not going to be suspended this year because the court case is going to last until like 2026 apparently. So with that in mind, would you move up Rice, or are you still like pretty bearish on him?
Yeah, a little bit, but not a lot. Probably up towards 22, I think, would be where he kind of caps out for me. I just feel like there's a lot of options in that offense, and I think that we saw in his rookie year, Rice was the guy. And they passed to Rice because it was Kelsey and Rice and there was no one else. And they kind of had to go to Rice because Kelsey was starting to fade. That's not really the case anymore. There are actually a lot of receiving options all of a sudden in KC, and they don't need to go to Rice. They've got Hollywood Brown coming back. Xavier Worthy's in his second year, and we know players do get second-year bumps. It could be that Rice is very good, and he could certainly have a good year. I just think there's significantly more security in the others, and I can see a really low floor for Rice. So that's my greatest concern with Rice. The other player I will be moving a little bit, there was news today suggesting that Chris Godwin might play in week 1, but they're not going to rush him. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
The combination of that and Igbuka being drafted makes me very nervous on Godwin. I know we talked about that a little bit, especially after the draft. I said I think that that's going to be a player that drops a lot for me because his upside is massive, and I love Chris Godwin when he's playing. But when's he going to be playing? Until we get a little bit more information on that, I just can't take him that early.
Glad you brought up Godwin. He's one of the 2 players you have in your top 20 that I would absolutely not draft right now. Godwin, I don't know if I made this point to you. We did discuss it, but I view that Igbuka pick like Michael Penix last year, where the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to this $100 million contract, and then they drafted Michael Penix number 8. And I think at the time, like at first glance, you're like, this makes no sense. What are they doing? And then the thought popped in my head. I'm like, well, they gave Cousins all this money, and then they saw him throw in practice, and they're like, oh crap, this guy's done. We made a big mistake here. Let's take Penix. And I think the Buccaneers might have done the same thing with Godwin. It's like, yeah, they re-signed him. He was injured last year, and they thought, okay, yeah, he's going to come back. And then they saw him run around. And it's like, oh man, this guy's not going to be ready by week 1. So I think that's why they took Ibuka when they already had Mike Evans and Godwin and Jalen McMillan. It's like the only thing that makes sense to me, because it's not Evans. Like he was great last year, and I don't think it's McMillan. So it has to be Godwin. So I have not drafted Godwin at all. Like even like he's going like 6th round right now. Like I don't think I'd take him around 10. I just like completely off the board for me. The other guy is Tyreek Hill, and it's only because where he's going. He's going like round 3 right now. It's just way too early for me. This guy is in his 30s now. He's lost a step. The offensive line sucks. They just can't get the ball to him downfield anymore. Like unlike when they had a great offensive line, Tua could wait in the pocket and just bomb it downfield. Like they can't do that anymore. And then we saw a report a few days ago saying Tua's trying to get the ball out quicker. So like that's even worse for Hill. And Hill could be in jail at some point. And so it's like so many negatives for Hill. He's not undraftable like Godwin is for me. Like if Hill was dropped to like round 6, I would consider him. But round 3 for me is just way too rich. Even round 4, I'd be like, no. At round 5, I'd start considering him. First 4 rounds, no way for me for Hill. So any thoughts on Hill there?
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone below Ladd McConkey is someone that I'm probably regarding as a take if they really start to fall player, and they're just kind of ranked in that order, but I'll just wait until they appear as a viable option. I'm probably taking running backs and tight ends and quarterbacks ahead of a lot of these guys if I have the option, simply because I don't trust any of them. They all have knocks against them that make me very nervous. Garrett Wilson with his quarterback, Mike Evans, I think is just starting to hit that age where there's a risk of him falling off. And if Godwin does play, all of a sudden Evans is going to be hurt badly by that. Tyreek, you said, DJ Moore has a million new receivers around him. Everyone here has a reason to be very concerned. And so I'm not going out of my way to get most of these guys. I think there's very little upside with most of these players here. And I think they all have a significant amount of risk as well.
You know what I'm not concerned about is Cortland Sutton. Like he was the number 1 last year. He's like clearly the number 1 on that team. Like no one's going to challenge him for that. Bo Nix has experience now. Sean Payton's a great offensive-minded coach. I don't mind Sutton. I think he's like fairly safe. Any thoughts on him? And McLaurin too. There's the only thing is the contract dispute, but if that's resolved, I think he's pretty safe too. Any thoughts on those two guys?
I think they have made some changes. They brought in RJ Harvey. They brought in J.K. Dobbins. So you'd expect the run game's going to be better. And we know that they like to run the ball if they've got the ability to. I do think that Bo Nix, while he'll be a year improved, I think everyone's seen him now and they know that Sutton's the guy they have to shut down. They did bring in a day 2 wide receiver there, so they're clearly still trying to build options around him. I think Marvin Mims starts to emerge. But the biggest concern for me, I think that Evan Ingram could be a real target suck. I think there's a possibility that he just gets a whole heap of targets around 5 to 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage and takes away from what Sutton was doing previously. I know that'll open Sutton up on some bigger plays, but I feel like Sutton's volume will really suffer this year.
Yeah, that's fair about Ingram. Metcalf at 23, was that before Rodgers signed, or is that factored?
I just kind of assumed Rodgers was going to sign.
You just yeah, that's what I thought as well. And then I guess we should mention the rookies. You have Hunter 22. He's going 4th round, and so is McMillan. McMillan's going 4th round. I think that's way too early for these guys. Like we don't know Hunter's full role yet. Like maybe they're going to use him more defense. I personally think he's going to play offense, but you just don't know. And then McMillan, he said that he doesn't love football, and like his work ethic is bad. Man, he worries me. I don't know. And plus, he's with Bryce Young. And granted, Bryce Young has had, he's had Adam Thielen put together some good games. So McMillan's going to have some decent games this year, I think, but I just don't trust them at all. So, are you targeting these rookies in round 4, where they've been going?
No, definitely not. I feel like Hunter at least has a little bit of a ceiling if they use him properly. In that offense, we've seen that the wide receivers can explode, and we've seen that they've had situations where they've had 2 good fantasy wide receivers. So I can imagine a situation where Hunter has a good season. Really hard to see that happening with McMillan, though. It's not like we've ever seen Bryce Young be someone who's targeting his big outside guy. That's not really what he does in general. He generally targets the slot guys, the smaller slot guys. So I can't imagine McMillan's going to have a big season. But I also have to acknowledge he is a top 10 wide receiver, and top 10 wide receivers do have a big upside when it comes to exploding in their first season. But they also have a lower floor than a top 10 running back. So that's why I'm not willing to go out of my way to get him.
Yeah, my only argument there is like he shouldn't have been a top 10 receiver, and the Panthers took him to 8. I don't know if you heard my theory on why they took him to 8, because like they were expected to take Jalen Walker there. My theory is the same as why they took Bryce Young. It's because David Tepper came in and was like, I need my guy to succeed. We need to do whatever it takes possible so I don't look stupid. so he's the one who decided that they take McMillan, whereas like the rest of the coaches wanted a defense player like Walker. I don't know if that's true. That's my theory.
That would not shock me. That is the most Carolina thing to do.
It is. Chris, what did you do to that nibble nuts guy? So on Twitter today, he tweeted something about his parents were at the Walmart protests around the country, and I quote tweeted him like, "Oh, I could see why he was raised so poorly." And then this is just trolling. I'm just trolling. Like, I don't know why anyone would take this seriously. So he responded. He's like, "My dad could beat up your dad," and then he blocked me. Which, like, if you look up my dad, like on like any Google search, like where he's ranked in lists of dangerous men, I don't think that you would say that correctly. That is, if you want to go down the rabbit hole there, that's pretty funny. Anyway, moving onward. So the top 50 again. I'm not going to read off all these. Just some names that stand out. You start with Xavier Worthy at 31. Brandon Ayuk coming off the 20 ACL, 33. I think that's about right. Devontae Smith, 35. He's a guy who's going earlier than I want. Like, he's going like late round 4. It's too rich for my blood. Matthew Golden is going round 8. So he might be a guy that you're like a rookie that you're more interested in than the public is. You mentioned Keon Coleman before at 39. Rome Odunze 40. I kind of like Rome Odunze. I think like where our biggest disagreement is 42, Jawan Jennings. I just think that Jennings, I think, is my second highest exposed player. I believe I've drafted Jennings in 44% of leagues, which is like, granted, is too much. Like before the draft, he was going 7th round. Now he's going 6th round. He's definitely moved up. I love Jawan Jennings, so I'm kind of curious to see why you have him 42. And Jaden Reed at 46, Debo 47. We agree that he should not be ranked highly. And I totally agree with you on Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp. They're 48 and 49 respectively. Diggs is coming off the 20 ACL and he's old. Cooper Kupp is washed up. And they're both going late 7th, early 8th. And that's just like ridiculous to me. Let me begin with our biggest disagreement, Jawan Jennings. So why Jennings here at 42? And I should add, do you have another slide, or are you going to tight ends next?
No, we've got tight ends. Yeah.
So I don't see Ricky Pearsall here either. So to me, I feel like the Niners, someone's going to catch passes, and I think those guys are talented receivers. And as far as I'm concerned, plus you have Ayuk coming into 20 CL. I don't know if he's going to play at the start of the season. So. What are your thoughts here on these Niners receivers?
I think the top 2 Niners receivers are Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and the wide receivers are all going to be playing for scraps. I think we saw last year Kittle was injured at times, and when he played, he was the number 1 guy. Christian McCaffrey was injured for most of the season. The other wide receivers weren't good receiving receivers. The other running backs weren't good receiving running backs, I should say. Plus, Jennings really benefited from Ayuk being injured and Debo being out a lot of the time. I do like Jennings. I have him in a lot of teams because last year I believed in him when I picked him up. He is a very good blocking wide receiver, which I think will really help. But ultimately, I think that the ceiling's very low. He really needs injuries to CMC and or George Kittle before he can emerge as even being a relevant for fantasy wide receiver.
That's a great point. I mean, those are their top 2 receivers. I guess this all stems from our talk about McCaffrey, how I would be surprised if he plays all the games. So maybe I guess that kind of translates to Jennings. If you factored in McCaffrey missing 5 games, Jennings I'm sure would be higher as would Pearsall. We saw Jennings just have some monster games, and I like Pearsall coming out of college last year. He was my number 1 sleeper until he got shot, so I had to kind of remove him from the sleepers list. But I still like those guys, and for that reason, I'm targeting Brock Purdy. Maybe not targeting, but I'm pairing them with Brock Purdy as just stacking options. Okay, so I like the Jalen Waddle 30. I didn't mention him. Jalen Waddle's 38. He's going like I want to say late 5th, early 6th. I think that's way too early for him. Butters, who I always mention this, Butters, who comes on sometimes as a co-host. He calls him a pyramid scheme, which I think is very accurate for him. Golden 36. You want to touch on Golden because whereas like you're more bearish on those other rookies, you're more bullish on Golden compared to where he's going in drafts.
I think that the Packers want to pass the ball. I think they went and got Golden because they feel like they need better wide receivers. Christian Watson obviously being injured. Dontavian Wicks has been disappointing. Romeo Dobbs ultimately is always going to be the team's wide receiver 3. And they don't even use Reed on anything but three receiver sets. I think they see Golden as the guy. Now, I don't see him as the guy. I wish they went out and got Ted McMillan, but that obviously wasn't the case. They do see Golden as being the number one. I think he's going to get the volume to kind of reflect that. He's going very late in drafts, and you're possibly getting a team's wide receiver 1, a team that's going to pass the ball, a team that doesn't have a stud tight end. It's not like either of their tight ends are particularly talented. And while Josh Jacobs will run the ball a lot, he's not a great receiving back either. I feel like Golden arguably could be the number 1 receiver for the whole team. And you're getting him so late in drafts, it's just the upside's large and the floor, I think, is actually pretty high as well.
Yeah, he's definitely high upside, but the floor is pretty low, as you said. Everything else like looks pretty good to me. Where would you take Diggs and Cup? Like I said, they're going late 7, early 8. Like, would you? I mean, I assume you wouldn't draft them at all, but
where would I take them? Waivers. I would take them off my team. I don't want them. I'll trade them. To someone else. Like I don't want. There's no situation where I'm ever going to value them as high as half of my league. Like even in the sharpest of leagues, I'm going to be lower on them than everybody else. I watched Cup play last year because I had him in some dynasty teams, and I never want to do that again. I just don't want to watch him play anymore. I've loved him for years. He's fantastic, but I don't want to watch him play anymore. And Stephon Diggs, I mean, I'm not letting you anywhere near my sister. Like, I don't want him like on any of my teams. Like, go away. Like, both of those guys just, and same with Debo as well. Like, they're purely name value guys that people are going to overpay for. So if you've got them on your team for whatever reason, just get them off.
Debo's going even earlier. He's going 6th round. So I should have included him there. Yeah, Cup to me, like, if I had to, the one of these 3 I hate the most, I think is Cooper Kupp, because and you have him 3rd here. He was with Sean McVay and Stafford last year, and yet he still struggled. Like now he's not going to have Stafford. He's going to have Sam Darnold. He's not going to have Sean McVay. He's going to have Seattle's coaching, and Seattle's offensive line is also weaker. So there's just like 3 negatives to Kupp, and he's old. Like. Why is he going late round 7, early round 8? Every time he goes off the board, I just smile. Thank you for paying the rake here. Like you're not going to win this league. Thank you so much for shrinking the increasing my win percentage here. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Last one, Chris Olave 34. I'm torn on him. So on one hand, he's paired with rookies, but I think that could be a good thing because rookie quarterbacks lock in on number 1 receivers all the time. However, he has a concussion history, and it's still a bad offense. Like my rule is just like don't draft players from bad offenses. So I see him going around 7, and I'm like mildly intrigued, but I usually pass on him. Any further thoughts on him before I go to tight ends?
I've got to be completely honest. I've not thought on him very much at all. I very rarely think, I could really use some Chris Olave. I can imagine a situation where he falls a little bit and I think, you know what? I just need a really secure wide receiver 3. I need someone I know is going to play and he's going to be okay. And I feel like that's Chris Olave. I feel like he's still going to have those weeks where he gets like 2 targets for 20 yards. And that's always going to be the case with Olave, but he is ultimately their number 1 receiver, and that's definitely not changing. It's not like they've got tight ends that are going to come in and get a whole heap of volume. The only real target competition for him is Alvin Kamara, and I do think that is a legitimate risk, but they're going to have to pass the ball a bit because their defense isn't enough to stop them from having to chase games. So I can see the upside there, but the weekly floor is so low with Olave that I find it hard to feel good about drafting him.
It is low. I think that's why he's more appealing in best ball, because you do have the upside, but the floor is very low. All right, tight ends. The Brock Bowers, no surprise. He's number one. The George Kittle's two. Trey McBride, 3. 4. T.J. Hawkinson, 5. Sam LaPorta, 6. Jonnu Smith, 7. David Njoku, 8. Mark Andrews, 9. Travis Kelce, 10. Pat Fryermuth. I like that you have Kelce below Njoku and Andrews. In fact, like, as long as Rashee Rice is healthy, I feel like Kelce's just very unappealing to me, because they basically do the same thing on the field. And he's an older player. I think I've mentioned this a few times, never to you though. Mark Andrews is someone I think is going to have a bounce back year. If you think about what happened to him last year, now first half of the season he was injured, he's not himself. Second half of the year he got better because he got healthier, and in the playoffs he had the worst game of his career. He had the 2 fumbles and a drop, the drop 2-point conversion that would have won the game or tied the game at least. If I'm Mark Andrews, I'm waking up every day and just thinking about that game and like, man, I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to work so hard this offseason, have the best season ever. I think that he's very appealing. He's not even 30 yet. So I think that he could have a great year. And I love Njoku. We saw him with Joe Flacco 2 years ago. And every time he's with a quarterback who is functional, like, he does very well. But we've seen the floor with him when he's with like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, just like direct quarterback, like he just does poorly. But, Flacco is a functional player still, I think. So Njoku should do well. So I'm targeting Njoku and Andrews a lot. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all your tight end rankings here. I can't find anything I disagree with in your top 10, including Kittle over McBride, because McBride's going before Kittle in drafts, but I like Kittle more. So you want to touch on anything here? I mean, I can't really see anything that really stands out as being wrong.
Yeah, I just feel like this is just a natural way to list these. I think someone I'm really interested in is TJ Hawkinson. I think we've seen that last year he wasn't fully healthy, and as he started to get healthier, he's looked better. I do think that we've seen a situation where rookies, and JJ McCarthy is essentially a rookie, do tend to target their tight ends because they're safer throws a lot of the time, and that Hawkinson could be that real target blanket for him, especially because Jefferson always gets so much double coverage. So I can see Hawkinson having a really good season. But Andrews, I agree. I think they could go one of two ways. We saw last season where Likely had a massive week 1, and as you said, people were drafting him in like the second round of best ball drafts and stuff like that after that. But realistically, Andrews is the number one guy, and when he's been healthy, he's typically been the number one. I think that they both have 1 year left on their contracts, and Andrews has a real point to prove. They clearly are making a statement by not re-signing either of them, and I think that Andrews had far more chance of being the number one guy. But I think realistically, they both could have very solid seasons, and if Likely gets an injury, all of a sudden Andrews could turn into a real stud. So the upside is there. I just think he has a lower floor than most of the guys around here. The other one we didn't talk about as well is Pat Fryermuth. Mm-hmm. There's not really many good pass catching options in that offense. Especially if we see a fair bit of Caleb Johnson as the running back. All of a sudden, who's going to catch the ball? DK Metcalf is going to be gone downfield. You need an underneath option. It's going to be Pat Fryermuth, because you cannot rely on Calvin Austin as being the second pass catcher. So I think Fryermuth actually has a far higher floor than most people are recognizing on a weekly basis. I can see a situation where he comes in as a great value.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers loves throwing to tight ends in the end zone, so Fryermuth should have a good year. Does it worry you that they keep bringing up like rumors of the Steelers trying to trade for Jonnu Smith or any other tight ends? I found that very interesting.
I find that weird. I think possibly it just suggests that they feel like they want to value the tight end position, not necessarily that there's anything wrong with Fryermuth specifically. Yeah. Fryermuth's been pretty solid for them for quite a while now. I can't imagine. I think that's nearly a positive. Obviously, if they actually do trade for someone like a Jonnu Smith, obviously all of a sudden they're both totally useless for fantasy. And you can't take either of them anywhere near their current value. But I think it's highly unlikely they do. If anything, they need to go out and get a wide receiver. I don't know why they haven't picked up any wide receivers. I think Robert Woods is their wide receiver 3 at the moment. I don't even understand why he's on a roster. It's very strange. I don't know what they're doing. But this is typical Steelers. They'll still make the playoffs. It's going to be ugly for fantasy.
It's always ugly with them, but they somehow always get to 10-7 and always make the playoffs. Roman Wilson, I like him a little bit. It's like round 20 guy. I think he has a chance to do something. I liked him last year, but he got hurt, so we'll see. He did say Mason Rudolph was elite, so maybe his talent evaluation is pretty bad. So I wouldn't expect him to be a GM after his career is over anytime soon. So before we get to the last slide, do you have time to do a fantasy draft? These take about like 45, 50 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so while we go to the next slide, I will enter a draft. Actually, you won't see it on screen, but okay. So we have we start with Tucker Kraft and Zach Ertz, Brenton Strange, Tyler Warren, Dalton Kincaid in the top 15. Then Dallas Goedert, Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, Isaiah Likely, Mason Taylor with the Jets rookie tight end at number 20. And then you have Mike Gesicki, Colson Loveland, Kyle Pitts, Kate Otten, Jake Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, Noah Gray, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, Chiggy Bang Bang Okonkwo at number 30. I don't see my my number one highest exposed player in this draft. I take this guy in like round 19 every single time. It is Tyler Higbee. So I need to know why Tyler Higbee's not on this list because he was hurt all last year. He came back to the playoffs. He was awesome in the playoffs in 2 games. And I know they drafted a tight end in the second round. I know that, but like Stafford is an older guy. He loves Higbee. He's gonna like this year. Ferguson's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be a threat to Higbee. I think next year maybe 2026 is not. I'm not gonna take Higbee then, but I think this year I think it's still gonna be Higbee's role at tight end. Kind of like when the Eagles drafted Dallas Goedert. Like Zach Ertz still had a great year, but then Goddard eventually took over. I think it's gonna be the same thing with the Rams. I think Stafford's just like too old. Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, I think he's going to keep relying on Higbee, especially Cooper Kupp gone. So any thoughts to my love on Tyler Higbee? Because I have drafted him, and you're probably going to laugh. I have drafted him in 80% of leagues, not round 19. Round 19. I should have waited.
I did laugh. You're right. I did laugh. Look, realistically, if I knew definitively that Higbee or Ferguson was going to be the number one for the Rams, then they would be 19 on this list. Okay. I just have no idea which it's going to be. I truly don't know. I don't know how they see this. I'm very scared it's going to be a committee, so I can't even just go out and get both. I just feel like this is a situation where they're both really cheap, and there is situations where there's value. And I think in best ball, that is the perfect time to be going out and getting a Higbee, and maybe even getting Ferguson as well. Because I feel like there are going to be weeks where either of them could boom. But there's also a situation where Higbee is just playing the number one guy all season, because we do know that day 2 tight ends do have a history of getting sat for a season and then emerging after that. It kind of feels a little bit like a Trey McBride situation where Zach Ertz was the number one. And then McBride kind of developed as the season went on. And by the end of the season, it was a little bit more McBride. But you saw a whole heap of Zach Ertz earlier in the season. I can imagine a situation here where we start off with a heap of Tyler Higbee. And as the season comes on, we start to see some Ferguson start to emerge.
Hey, yeah, look, it's 19th round. Like, who else are you going to take in the 19th round? So, like, some bum receiver. The other guy, if it's not Higbee, I draft Theo Johnson, so he's not on your list either. I like his upside. He's a very athletic player. We saw glimpses from him last year. I think he could have a decent tight end 2 season. Any thoughts on him? Because he's not on your list here.
Yeah, look, he has a very high route run total, which is something I use to judge tight ends on a weekly basis. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter how much they're out on the field. It really only matters when they're out there running a route. And realistically, we do see with Theo Johnson, he's out there an alarming amount of the time running a route, but they're nearly all empty routes. He gets like 1 or 2 targets a game. I don't know if that's anything to do with Johnson. I feel like it probably had more to do with the quarterbacking. When we see the quarterback change, that's going to make a difference. If it's Jackson Dart, for example, I could imagine that could really help Johnson, because we do know that rookie quarterbacks tend to target their number one receiver and their tight end. And that would mean that that's really good for Johnson. Having said that, if it's someone like a Russell Wilson, I mean, anything could happen. Realistically, we don't know where he's going to go. We have seen him have good seasons with tight ends. We've also seen him lock on to wide receivers a heap. So I feel like there's upside here, but I think there's more upside with a lot of the other guys around.
Okay. Brenton Strange 13 is, I feel like, probably not on a lot of people's radars right now. It's kind of like an unknown name. So do you want to talk about like why you have him just outside of tight end 1 range?
I think that if Evan Ingram was still with the Jaguars, this is where I would have Evan Ingram. And we've seen whenever Evan Ingram has been injured, Brenton Strange has come in and had a literally identical role. He's done exactly the same thing. And they didn't re-sign Ingram. Sorry, they don't still have Ingram, I should say, for a very good reason, because they've got Brendan Strange. He's a day two guy who's come in and done exactly what they expected. We know that with tight ends in there, I think it's third year now, they do tend to emerge as possible starters. I think Strange has a massive amount of upside. I can see a situation where in a PPR league, he's someone that you're getting in the top 5 on a weekly basis. The problem that Ingram had was that he never caught any touchdowns. He'd go through whole seasons without scoring a touchdown. That's not the same issue with Strange. Strange is actually pretty good in the red zone. If you can get Ingram's volume and improve touchdown numbers, all of a sudden you're talking about a real weapon for fantasy. So I love Strange. Strange is someone that I'm going to have in maybe 80% of my teams if I had enough teams to have him in 80% of my teams.
Well, I'll take this 5. You get all you need is 4 out of 5, and you have 80%. Okay, so a couple other guys. So Mike Gesicki at 21. I think I have him higher than you do. We had some big games for him last year. Like, granted, that's when T. Higgins went down, but I like he is the third receiver, quote unquote, in that offense. I think so. And that offense, they're going to have to throw a lot. Their defense might be the worst defense I've seen in a while. So, any thoughts to Gesicki being 21 in your rankings?
I'm a little bit surprised they re-signed him for so much. I thought maybe they believed a little bit more in Eric All. I know All's got a pretty bad injury, and that could have
he's out. He's going to be out for all 2025.
Yeah, he will. But I thought maybe they just signed Gesicki to a 1-year deal for that reason. Okay. But I do think that helps Gesicki. Having said that, T. Higgins really helped Gesicki last year. When Higgins is there, it really is those top 2 receivers that get a massive amount of volume. And I don't think we can rely on the Bengals to pass the ball quite as much as they did last year. And I feel like that drop of volume is going to hurt Gesicki a little bit. I feel like he just has a really low weekly floor. He's going to have some really good weeks. He's going to have those weeks where he gets 6 or 7 catches for 70-odd yards, and that's fantastic for fantasy as a tight end. And then best ball for that reason, I would have him higher. I just think in a redraft league, it's really hard to see a situation where you're going to feel really good about starting him.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then the last thing I'll ask you is our draft's about to start. Colson Loveland 22 versus Tyler Warren at 14. It's a big disparity, and I agree with it. But like you see those guys drafted pretty much in the same range. So why do you like Warren a lot more than Loveland?
Competition. I think that Loveland is going to be in the committee. I think that Warren is going to be the clear number 1 guy. Plus, the Bears have a heap of other receiving options. Even if Loveland were the only tight end there, I still feel like he might be the 4th or 5th receiver in that offense. I just don't see a situation where he's going to develop into a really fantasy valuable role in the near future. I think long term he's a very talented player and he could be very solid, but for the short term, I think that Warren's the only one that could really turn into a fantasy stud.
Yeah, me too. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, Warren has a clear role in that team. Loveland, we don't know. It's Cole Kmet. There's so many receivers there. It's just so many players, like way too many. It's too many cooks. I don't know if you ever watched that video. Did you ever watch that Too Many Cooks video? It was like released like almost 10 years ago now.
I don't, but I know the saying.
Okay, well, I love that you haven't seen this because what you need to do after we stop the show is watch search Too Many Cooks on YouTube. It's like a 10-minute video. It'll like change your life. It is the most ridiculous video you've ever seen in your life. It is so absurd. You'll have to see it afterward. I'm gonna make sure you. What'd you say?
Writing it down now.
Writing it down right now. Okay. All right. We are about to start a draft here. We have the second pick. The draft starts in 20 seconds. So it's. Would you agree?
What's the roster?
What'd you say?
What's the roster construction like?
Okay, so it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, tight end, and a flex. This is PPR, and then this is 20 rounds. So
4-point passing touchdowns.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you would agree it's Chase or Barkley. I mean, those are the 2 top guys on the board, and that's what I've gone in these drafts.
I think you could argue for Jefferson given the 3 wide receiver slots, but I think we know that ultimately you're going to see some value for wide receivers later on. So yeah, I'd go Barkley.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you definitely make the case for Jefferson. I've gone Chase or Barkley here because you're not going to get Barkley too many times. So the number 1 pick went Jamar Chase. So we will take Saquon Barkley, and then we will see how the rest of this unfolds. So. looks like I'm going to see if I recognize any names here. Obviously, Cliv, who's drafting third, is from Stochastic, which I would not recommend Stochastic. I worked with them before, but they treated me very poorly, and in fact, I think ever since they went from Awesemo.com to Stochastic.com, their product has just declined, and it's just really got worse. I feel like, I've issued my opinions on that before. So we had Bijan Robinson third instead of Jefferson. I can't imagine that you're a fan of that.
No, someone's going to get a real bargain on McCaffrey here at some point in time. But the fact that they're going Jahmyr Gibbs at 5 as well is wild over someone like a Lamb when there's 3 wide receivers starting.
Yeah, well, there goes Lamb at 106. I agree. I think Gibbs is a little too early. McCaffrey's going around this range, like 107, 108, 109. Like I said before, he went 102 in one of my drafts, but usually mid first round. And this is earlier than he was going before, which is early second round. Like it's like 3 weeks ago. I think what changed is that like there was reports saying like he was full go in practice, which I don't think I can ever trust the 49ers again after what happened last year.
It's so frustrating. How many times in fantasy have we had fantasy seasons ruined just by bad reports or coaches saying, "Oh yeah, he's going to be fine. He's going to be ready for the season," and then all of a sudden he doesn't play at all. I once had multiple years in a row where my first round pick just didn't play all season, and at the time of the draft there was no reason to know that was going to happen.
Yeah. Same thing with me. I drafted. This is a long time ago. You'll tell by the name. Remember Dominic Davis on the Texans?
I don't even think I was aware of the NFL back then.
Okay. All right. Well, Dominic Davis was a first-round pick, a perennial first-round pick in fantasy. He was the running back for the Texans. And this draft was I remember it was on a Saturday at like 2:00. And so I drafted Dominic Davis at the first round. I was like 11th pick overall. I drafted Dominic Davis. No joke, like 3 hours later, report torn ACL after the year. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like 3 hours later, this draft couldn't be at like 6:00 instead of 2. That was brutal. I did not do well that year, as you might suspect. So our first round is complete. So McCaffrey 108, Gentry 110, Henry 112. Anything you see wrong here outside of Bijan? You were saying?
Where's Neighbors?
Neighbors, yeah, he should be going first round. I assume he's going to go early. I hope he falls to us, but I don't see that happening.
Oh, double running back when Neighbors was available is wild. I do like JT there, but you'd think that Neighbors had to be the pick.
Yeah, double running back in a 3 receiver format is just feels like wrong unless you're getting like insane value. If like the guy who took McCaffrey, if Taylor fell to him, I could see that. But it's just okay. There goes the double receiver. We like still no Neighbors. That's there we go. So Gentry Neighbors with the 10th pick, which is pretty good.
That's pretty dangerous. That's a very good start.
Yeah. Totally agree. And again, I just think going double running backs early is problematic. To me, have you done any drafts at all yet?
No best ball or redraft. I've done a lot of dynasty.
Okay, so I don't know if you experienced this in dynasty, but to me, receiver really dries up before any running back, before any position. It's like late round 8, round 9. I start looking at the receivers on the board. And I'm like, I don't like any of these guys. So I've been in best ball. I've been drafting, especially in this format. I've been drafting like 5. I try to get 5 receivers in the first 8 rounds. And then it's usually like 2 running backs and then like 1 something else, like either quarterback or tight end, or maybe like a 6th receiver or sometimes a 3rd running back. But usually it's at least 5 receivers. I try to make sure I have at least 5 because it gets, you'll see it. It gets really ugly, like starting round 9.
I think there's a good chance we get someone like an AJ Brown or a Jackson Smith or Jigba fall to us here as well, which would be massive.
I hope so. I hope we get Brown. Like he's been dropping for some reason. Like I said before, London's going before him. London went 206 earlier than AJ Brown, which I don't understand at all.
McConkey going there is crazy when they just drafted Trey Harris, and we know that Quinn Johnston's looking better. Rashee Rice in the second round is insane.
Yeah, I've been telling you, he's going late round two. Yeah, unfortunately, AJ Brown left. Okay, we're up after this pick, so we're up right now. So we have our top players are Jacobs, McBride, Higgins, Josh Allen, Garrett Wilson, Chase Brown, McLaurin, Lamar Jackson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith.
Smith or Jigba.
Do you think we can get him on the way back? We could take Higgins here and then get Jackson Smith and Jigba. What do you think about that?
I would rather have Josh Jacobs than Higgins personally, although they are very close.
All right, let's take JSN then. We'll take JSN, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get Higgins anyway. I mean, the guy who took Chase, maybe he's going to double up on Bengal players, which you see a lot in best ball. You see like a lot of stacking options because this is the main contest. This is I don't know if you're familiar with the prize structure in these contests.
No.
It's $2 million in first place. Like this could be a $2 million team that we're drafting right now. The problem is like you have to be top two in this league to make. There you go, Higgins. You have to be top two in this league to make it to the playoffs. In the first round, you have to be top two, and then the semifinals, you have to win the semifinals. And then when you get to the championship, you're going against like 1,000 people. Like you just have to outscore everyone in week 17. And even like if you finish like last place in week 17, I think like you still get like $2,000 or something. But like I mean, you want the big bucks, like the 2 million. Second place is 1 million, you know. So okay, Chase Brown goes. So you like Josh Jacobs? I'm going to start him. Does anyone else make sense or any consideration here for anyone else?
I think it's too early for a quarterback. I don't think a tight end makes sense.
Yeah.
Jacobs is the only top 10, even top 12. The only top 10 running back I have left. My highest wide receiver is Garrett Wilson. I don't want him. So I think it has to be Jacobs.
Okay. We will take Josh Jacobs and then see how the rest of the draft unfolds. So Handyman, the guy drafting first, he took 3 Bengals. Like, he took Chase, Higgins, and Brown, which I get the stacking, but like to me, I think like you can go too far with that. I don't know. I feel like they cancel each other out eventually, you know. And what if he doesn't get Burrow? Like the team's just gonna get ruined.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure anyone who might be commenting might be like, "Oh, take Burrow to screw him over." I actually don't like that. I don't like if you're drafting in your home league or whatever, then that makes sense. I think it makes more sense to cooperate with your league mates here because. You know, like you want the winner of this league to go far in the playoffs. So even if it's not you, like I think that's just the best way. Because like I think that like especially like in the playoff drafting, I think it's just like best if people don't interfere with each other's plans. It's like yeah, you're going against each other, but like really the ultimate goal is to win in the championship. And like for that to happen, like everyone would have the optimal team. And like you want the winner out of this league to win the whole thing. So. I don't know. It's me, but like you always see people screwing each other over, and I'm like, that's not how you should do it here. Like it's much different than in real home leagues. So
I agree. I think ultimately you're kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're not really helping yourself massively, and you're also hurting your league mate for no particular good reason.
Yeah, and something that happened to me in a home league was I was waiting for a quarterback way late because I love Josh Allen. And this is his second year, I think. So I was planning on drafting in like round 12 or maybe around 11. I can't remember. And so there's a guy who took Matt Ryan in the 4th round, which ended up being a terrible pick because he sucked that year. And so round 11 came around and like he knew I liked Josh Allen. So he took Josh Allen like ahead of me just to screw me over. And I was like, why would you take a second quarterback when you already have one in the 4th round? So you just screw me over. But like the Allen pick made sense for him. It actually ended up working out for him. But like he wasted a 4th round pick, so I don't think he won the championship. So that I mean, you see that again. If it's home league, it's whatever. But here it's different. All right, so round 3 is over. We saw Trey McBride going before George Kittle. That I told you that happens. DJ Moore 311 is as the earliest I've seen him, and then Tyreek Hill 308. We talked about him as well. Anything else stand out to you here?
I mean, no one's taken a running back since we took Jacobs at 302. I think that makes sense that there is a little bit of a drop off there. My next running backs are guys like Kyron Williams and James Conner, who aren't that far away from, I don't know, the running back 20, for example. So I think there's a real tier here, and it makes sense definitely for us to go wide receiver next. But if they keep coming off the board, we might run out of options.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Kyron just went 402. McMillan 403. That's extremely early. I don't like. He usually goes like late round 4, and I still think that's way too early. 403 is absurd to me. So the guy that we said he had a good start with Genty and Neighbors. He kind of fizzled a bit in the 4th round. What are your thoughts on more? We didn't talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. What do you think about him?
I'm very concerned. I think there's a lot of reasons to feel very nervous about him. I can imagine situations where he has a very good season, but I can imagine a lot of reasons why he might struggle, especially with McBride suctioning up so many targets and their willingness to rely on the run game. I think that Harrison remains someone that's kind of capped off at being at best a low-end wide receiver too.
You know what? I was like heading into the 2025 fantasy season. I was like, oh, you know what? It'd be cool to get buy low on Marvin Harrison Jr. And I was like, okay, where's he go? Like 5th, 6th round? Like I'd buy him low there, but like he's going round 3. It's just no value. It's no value.
I think there's a good chance that Cortland Sutton maybe gets to us.
Yeah, let's look at this. So we have Metcalf, Burrow. We can take Burrow. Jameson Williams, Jalen Hurts, Travis Hunter, Cortland Sutton. Hurts just went. Sorry. Devontae Smith, Chuba Hubbard, Zay Flowers, Alvin Kamara, Mixon, Pickens, Walker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Metcalf just went. So who do you want to take here?
I would go Sutton.
Yeah, me too. All right, we got Cortland Sutton as our number 2 receiver. I assume Handyman's going to take Joe Burrow. Handyman, don't screw us over later. I don't know how he could screw us over, but we just gift wrapped Burrow to him.
I think there was an argument to take Burrow there, but like you said, as legitimately the best pick because the top 4 quarterbacks have all gone. I didn't realize Hurts had gone when we talked about Sutton. I think if I knew that Hurts wasn't there, I would have considered Burrow. But I think if Burrow gets back, he's definitely the pick.
Well, he took him, so we wait for his next pick. So who are you thinking here?
I think we probably need to go wide receiver again, maybe a Travis Hunter because he does have so much upside.
Okay, well, let's pull up the receivers. So Jameson Williams, Travis Hunter, Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley. Your favorite is Hunter.
I like Hunter. I think there's an argument for Williams as well in a best ball. What tight ends are available?
We have Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, Jonnu Smith.
I don't think it would be crazy to take Hawkinson, but I feel like you don't need to. I feel like we need wide receivers because we went pretty running back heavy early on.
Yeah, Hawkinson could fall to us. I've seen him go round 7, so I think he could fall back to us. All right, let's take Travis Hunter here. Yeah. It's the first time I've seen Hunter go round 5, but he usually goes early round 4, so this is unusual. So this guy took DeAndre Swift to 501. That is way early. No, I don't disagree with it. I think Swift should go earlier than he has been, but he's been going round 7, round 8. So that's unusual. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, he went all Bengals and then DeAndre Swift. So he's gonna go after Chicago players next. I can see. My prediction for him is going to draft Roma Dunze at 6-12.
I think the players that's going to be the best value pick in the coming round is going to be James Conner. Someone's going to get a massive bargain here with James Conner, like late 5th, early 6th.
Yeah, James Conner usually goes early 6th. There's my guy, Chuba Hubbard, 505. I drafted him today at 506. Kamara went, George Pickens, 506. You were down on Pickens, I believe. I think he was like number 40 for you or so. I didn't ask you about him. Any thoughts on that?
I think ultimately Lamb is such a big part of that offense that there's just not enough left for everybody else. I feel like their wide receiver 2 is typically in that 30-something to high 40s range. And I feel like that's probably where Pickens falls.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like Zay Flowers. Personally, if I were drafting solo, I think I would have taken Flowers at 502. And you know, this is different. Like best ball, much different than regular home league because you're just looking for spike weeks and like that's all Flowers is like spike week then almost 0, spike week almost 0, you know. So that's I like Flowers more than you. So
He would have been who I said after Hunter, and pretty close to Williams as well. I think Hunter, Williams, and Flowers for me, especially in best ball, are all very, very close.
Okay. All right. So round 4 and about round 5 is about to be complete. So highlights are like Kittle went 408, which is almost a full round after McBride. We saw 3 quarterbacks round 4: Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. A couple rookies. Hampton went 406, and then round 5 is complete. So Connor went 512. Anything stand out to you rounds 4 and 5?
James Conner, massive bargain. Couple of reaches in there. I like Swift, but I feel like this is a little bit too early for him, though I do realize the upside there. And Patrick Mahomes just started the 6th round.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of makes sense, but I feel like you're not going to get maximal value there. That's kind of like a very safe pick if you're in a redraft league and you just want your team to be good, but that's not really what you're gunning for here. You're kind of gunning for upside, and I feel like there's a bit of capped upside with Mahomes.
Yeah, this screams like, oh, I want to win $30 instead of $2 million.
Yeah,
which is not what you should be going for in this.
His team's actually pretty good. He got Henry and Taylor early, and then he got Mike Evans cheap, and then he got James Conner. So he could have actually had a really good team.
One to 32. So there's definitely some downside with this team, but they could play well together. Maybe they'll each have one more good year. RJ Harvey, and we just saw 2 rookies go off the board, Henderson and Harvey. You don't like it, I take it.
It's too early. Like I do understand there's a little bit of upside there, but the upside's very low with those 2 in particular.
Cooper Kupp just went 605. Thank you. What is your username? Dean Smith. Thank you for increasing our odds of winning this league. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's disgusting.
That's horrible. I didn't like him at 805. 605 is absurd. Wow, 605.
Have we seen Aaron Jones yet?
No, he's been going around 7. Like I said, he and Swift are going the same range to round 7, and I'm kind of like I always flip flop between the 2. So we could get Aaron Jones at 611 if you want him.
I don't mind that. I do admit in the best ball, you're always going to get a whole heap of cheap handcuffs at the end that are going to have some value. But I feel like the Aaron Jones value here is very, very high.
Okay, we're up next pick. There's Laporta, Samuel. Okay, we're up right now. Laporta, Montgomery, Addison, Olave, Judkins, Myers, Aaron Jones, Khalil Shakira, Caleb Johnson, Travis Kelce, Baker Mayfield, Isaiah Pacheco, etc. Who do you like here?
I like Addison, but I also like Jones, so I'll be happy with either of those 2.
Okay, because we have 2 running backs already, I think I'd rather take the receiver. I'm fine taking both, actually. I know there is a conflict here, but in best ball, I think it's like less of an issue. So yeah, we have. I agree with you on Addison. I think he and Jennings are very close to me. And I know you don't like Jennings as much, but they're like right next to each other in my rankings, and so they're guys I sometimes flip flop as well. And I predicted that Odunze would go to this guy, but Odunze went at 608. So I don't know what this guy's going to do now. He's just all about stacking, so he's probably trying to figure out who he gets stack, or he's just running out of time apparently. Quinshaw Judkins goes 612. He took Aaron Jones. All right, so we're up now with our 7th pick. Who do you like?
Could take Hawkinson and kind of go, well, this team's going to be amazing if Justin Jefferson gets injured.
And yeah, we can take McCarthy later.
Yeah, right.
I like that. So yeah, let's go for Hawkinson. I like that. I like the strategy. Yeah. So all right, so we have our tight end, and round 6 is complete. I assume you think Deebo Samuel was a reach, and I would agree.
Ugh, there's some really bad picks there.
In round 6, there are some very bad picks. You're right. Yeah,
that is hideous. There are still some good options on the board that really should have been taken in this range. The fact that Aaron Jones made it through round 6 is kind of nuts. But oh gosh, it's pretty ugly out there. Wide receivers really are flying off, but you kind of expect that in this league setup. It'll be interesting to see where is Chris Olave still out there. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see where.
Yeah, he's out there. He just went. So we have 4 receivers. So I would like to take a 5th and the 8th, or I guess not. It's the same thing. So we'll see the receivers on the board when we're up at 8-11. It's going to be pretty hideous. So Olave, I guess he makes. As I told you when we talked about him, he's always around in round 7. I'm like, I think I like him a little bit, but I like someone else more. Like that's always this thing with Olave to me,
Makes a lot of sense. Guys like him, and I guess also like Isaiah Pacheco is going to keep falling here. It'll be interesting to see where Baker Mayfield goes, because I think if he makes it to us at 8-11, that's suddenly some really good value.
My prediction, he goes like 806, around where he goes. Laporta just went. Kelsey went before Laporta, which I think is a big mistake. A lot of sketchy picks here. Like round 6, we had RJ Harvey, we had Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, and then Deebo Samuel as very, very sketchy picks around 6. And even Mahomes, you said he's safe, which is, I agree, he's safe. But safe doesn't win you $2 million, so there's just no reason to do that in round 6. Now, if he fell to you around 801, I think that's a lot different than 601. But yeah, this guy's upside is kind of capped here, I think, at quarterback. So not really a fan. So we have round 7 complete now. Anything stand out to you about round 7?
Tight end, a little bit of a tight end run that we triggered, which is good. You always want to be triggering the runs rather than being last on the run, unless you're getting the last guy in your tier. But if you're going to take somebody, take a position like tight end or quarterback, you want to see a heap of them go up off the board right after you've done it, because that means the value at other positions is definitely falling. That's especially in a redraft league, but even in a best ball, it's always good to see.
Yeah, do you like Josh Downs? I don't remember where you had him in ranking. You don't?
I didn't have him in my top 50. I think Warren comes in and hurts him. I think JT naturally hurts him. I think Pittman's still the number 1 guy. Pacheco just started the 8th round, which I think is good value for that team. That Zach Abbott team, I think, is going to be very solid.
Yeah. Well, outside of the Mahomes pick, yeah. I mean, yeah. I like Downs more than you do, I guess. I don't know. You're right about Warren taking some stuff away from him, but I don't know. I like him as a player, and I think if it's Daniel Jones, I like him a lot more. Like we saw him with Flacco. He had some big games with Flacco. So I think Richardson is just like if it's Daniel Jones, like Jones does run, but every time Richardson runs is a potential target taken away from Downs. But if it's suddenly Jones, then there's gonna be more targets available. So maybe that cancels out the Tyler Warren stuff. And then Mark Andrews. So this guy went double tight end, which I don't recommend at all. In fact, like you'll see it like later. Like there's some like decent tight ends in like round 17. So yeah, Dak Prescott goes 807. That's early for Prescott. Usually goes like round 10. But yeah, we're gonna be up at the clock soon.
I was really hoping to see Matthew Golden fall, but he just started the 8th round. But there's still some solid options around. Keon Coleman he's I think still around. Is Roma Dunze still there?
No, Dunze went round 6.
Okay. I quite like Coleman here, for example. Ayuk, actually, I like Ayuk here better.
Really? Brandon Ayuk, okay.
I think he's probably the wide receiver 1, and I feel like you get an injury to a Kittle or a McCaffrey. I feel like it's probably Ayuk that benefits. I have Ayuk ahead of Jennings.
Okay, I have a rule: just don't draft receivers coming off torn ACLs.
Okay, Keon Coleman I like as well.
But look, I've never drafted Ayuk, so I wouldn't mind some exposure to him. I could be wrong. Like players have come back off torn ACLs. Like it's happened before. It's not impossible. Yeah. So we'll take Ayuk. But here's what I'll tell you. Like these receivers are so underwhelming. We're up again. So we have 5 receivers already. We don't need another one necessarily. These are the top players available. What else? What stands out to you here?
Is Baker Mayfield still there? I didn't see him go, but I don't see him on the list. So
no, he's not. No, okay. 15 seconds.
Keon Coleman.
Okay. Keon Coleman. Interesting. Why? Tell me about Keon Coleman.
If he's the number 1, which I think there is a very reasonable chance he could be, then all of a sudden you get a massive bargain, especially like 9th round. I had him. I was just exceptionally high on him last year. I had him way too high. He killed my rankings last year because I had him like 20th or something insane like that, because I thought he's going to be the number 1 receiver. in Buffalo. And if he had been the number one receiver and they used him as the number one receiver, he would have been. And there's no reason that can't happen this year. And I feel like that's enough upside to make me feel good about it.
Yeah, they haven't brought in a veteran yet. Now, if they resign Cooper or they bring in like Keenan, I wouldn't see Allen because he played Shakir's spot. But if they bring back Cooper, I suddenly would be concerned. But the fact that they haven't brought in anything like that, like maybe that says something about Coleman. I think he could have a bounce back year for sure.
Yeah.
And then there goes Cam Scottaboo, and there goes 9-6. This is what I'm talking about. Like he goes so early, like compared to everyone else. He went before Zach Charbonnet.
That's ugly. Charbonnet is great value here.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going him on the way back. By the way, in best ball, I would recommend 3 quarterbacks on a roster because what happens is if one of those quarterbacks goes down in a regular league, you just pick someone up, right? But best ball, you can't pick up anyone. And so if you have one injury, you only have 2 quarterbacks left. And then let's just say one has a bye week. So you're only down to like 1 quarterback. Hold on. So if you have 2 quarterbacks, one gets injured, you're only down to 1, and then when his bye week comes around, you take a 0 at the position, which is like kills you so much. Yeah. So that's why I recommend 3 quarterbacks, like 3 of every position. Like I say, 3 tight ends. I think I call this Ellie. So 3 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 7 receivers, 3 tight ends is like the optimal. Sometimes 3-6-8-3 is better. Or you could always go like 3-5-9-3, which I don't like, but you can do. But I would go like my minimal for each position is 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, and 7 receivers. So just because like again, you can't pick up anyone up like this. We're drafting this and it's over. We can't do anything with this roster. So that's why I usually draft my quarterbacks like rounds 8 through 12 or 13. I should say 8 through 13. I draft like 3 of them in that range. And then like starting round 13, I take my as you would do, you would take your high upside backup running backs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like with guys like Nix and McCarthy and Herbert would all be viable here. Still available. Purdy, I guess, if necessary. As much as I would love to get someone like a Zach Charbonnet here, for example, because he does have such massive upside. If Walker goes down for the year, there's probably bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't ask you about Tyron Tracy. He just won 10-02. And you liked him last year. What are your thoughts on him this year?
I think in a best ball, it's not ideal because I feel like you're going to get Scatterboo doing a lot of work around the goal line. I feel like ideally with someone like Tracy, it's in a 0 RB situation in a redraft league. There goes Charbonnet. 0 RB in a redraft league, Tracy's going to give you some solid value until you can get some of your backups hitting.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Bo Nix goes at 10:05, and you're right. I mean, Tracy's going to lose those goal line carries, but yeah, I think like round 10, I think is pretty good for him. Yeah. Like he went like a half round later than Scatterbo. This is crazy. Scatterbo's the 3rd running back on the team. Like maybe maybe become 2nd eventually, but he's 3rd right now.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, realistically, I'm probably just avoiding that situation altogether. I can't imagine that there's if you're going for $2 million, I'm not drafting a Giants running back.
Fair enough. I've drafted Tracy in like round 9 or round 10, but that's all I've done here. All right, we are up soon. Here are the quarterbacks. Actually, the top 2 players are the quarterbacks. We have Purdy and Herbert. Purdy makes sense because we can pair him with Ayuk. And then there's Herbert and McCarthy. So I wouldn't mind taking one of like two of these 3 guys. Let's pull up the other quarterbacks. It's Purdy, Herbert, McCarthy, Love, Stroud, Lawrence. Who do you like here?
I would go McCarthy and Purdy.
Okay, let's do Purdy. Did you do like McCarthy first?
I understand that Purdy's more risk of going though. The guy on the turn already has 2 quarterbacks, so it's entirely possible he doesn't take either. But I do like McCarthy best.
Okay, why is this not working for me? What happened here? What is going on? Okay, what in the world just happened? Who do we get? We got McCarthy. I don't know what happened there. All right, Purdy went.
Purdy went. He took a 3rd QB, which is annoying.
Yeah, it's a little annoying. You want to
But
take
I think
Herbert?
yeah, I've got Herbert. I mean, I have Herbert above Purdy in redraft. I just think that Purdy has more weekly upside than Herbert does. But Herbert's still going to have some big weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. They just want to run the ball an annoyingly amount with the Chargers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what happened there. I like Njoku. We already had a tight end, but
Yeah.
I like Njoku in this area as you had in your top 10. Yeah, this guy like. So I am all for taking 3 quarterbacks, as I said. But if you take Burrow at 412, like this is not necessary. You can take one of these guys and then go high upside Richardson late or Ward late. I think Purdy's a wasted pick here for this guy.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I really thought that Purdy was going to make it around. It didn't make sense for him to do that, especially when he only has 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, that only 2 receivers. Wow, he has 2 good ones. You need 3, and like based on the scoring system PPR, like usually it's 4 in your lineup. So we'll see what he does at receiver. That's a very very shaky situation for sure. We have 4 tight ends going this round. Joku, Likely, Loveland, Ferguson, and yeah, like I was saying before, Loveland didn't go that much later than Warren, which we established that you disagree with. So, yeah, I'm liking our team so far, and we have good receivers. Love Hawkinson. Top 2 running backs are awesome. I think this could take down 2 million.
It looks solid. I think this is a good time to start targeting those good running backs, depending on who's available.
Yeah, we need one more quarterback, but we don't have to take one in the next 2 picks. But unfortunately, my boy Garendo went.
Yeah.
Would you like to guess my percentage draft? But the number of drafts I've done percentage wise with Garendo. Now I already told you that Higbee is my highest exposed player at 80%.
Yeah, I have to assume it's something like 40%.
Well, it's like, don't have a drink in your mouth. It's 70%.
Oh wow! No, I really like that. I think that's fantastic.
I'm getting him like round. So he's. What do you say?
If you're getting him in this range, like if you're getting him 11th round, then that's fantastic.
Oh, I've been getting him like round 12, round 13. This is early for Garendo.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I like the upside is insane. Like if McCaffrey went down tomorrow with an injury, like where would Garendo go? Like what round?
It's a very fair point. Have we seen Travis Etienne go yet?
Yes, 1104.
Okay, cool. I couldn't see him anywhere. Because seeing Tootin go there was surprising to me when there's no Etienne or Bixby off the board yet.
Yeah. Do you like Etienne at all?
I'm not really, but in the 11th round, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I heard there were trade rumors with him. He might be headed somewhere, maybe Dallas. I don't know.
That'd be good.
Yeah. There were rumors, and then like the head coach like threw water on them, and he's like, "Oh, we're not trading him." And I'm like, "Well, if you wanted to trade him, that's what you would say."
Yeah.
It's kind of just make sure you have the leverage there. All right, we're up in 2 picks, so we can switch to running backs here. Let's quick look at quarterbacks. We have Stafford, Cam Ward. There's Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Richardson. At running back, what did you say?
You can get a quarterback later.
Yeah,
I like Ray Davis here.
Ray Davis, I like. So Tajay Spears, Jaden Blue, Rashad White, Ray Davis, Trey Benson, Tag Bigsby, out Tyler Algier, Rico Doodle, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Nick Chubb. You would take Ray Davis over those guys?
Without doubt. I think Blue is not a bad choice, but I think maybe we don't need to.
Okay, well, I'll take Davis and make sure our buys line up because it's 9, 5, and 7, which is super important for best ball because you just you can't sign anyone. So this guy's third receiver is Adam Thielen. It's not great. All right, so do you like Blue better than everyone here? Sorry, let's go to the running. I'll go to the running backs. Here we go.
I don't mind Rashad White. I like Algier. I think he has really big upside, but I think Blue's more accessible. What do you think about Blue?
I like Blue. I mean, he's super fast. And we're 5 seconds left. So, yeah, they drafted Booker. Like they're gonna. I don't like Booker at all as a pass protector, but run blocker he should really help. And like Javonte Williams is not someone who's going to scare me away from anyone. It's a shame because he looked so good before that torn ACL he had as a rookie. And ever since, he's just disappointed. And I've like referred to Javonte Williams as like, and if Slew were on here, he'd call her insurance policy girl. Because I dated, well, not dated, I hung out with this girl in college. And like, she would like always like approach me. She's like, hey, you want to hang out? And be like, okay, yeah, cool. And then she'd like cancel like hours later. Like it'd be like something came up. Like always something comes up. And I like, it was always like disappointment. And that's how I feel about Javonte Williams. Like he is like a guy who's always hyped up. It's like, oh, Javonte Williams looking good. And then like he just looks like crap during games. And like it's always, hype, but he's always hyped up, and then he just very disappoints. That's how I feel about him.
I'm inclined to agree. I find it very hard to believe that he's going to be someone who's going to be able to keep that starting role all season. I am scared about an ugly committee, but I feel like if someone's going to be the clear starter here, it's going to be Blue.
Yeah, and look, I mean, with his speed, like he can break some long runs, and that's all you need in best ball. Just one long run, and that's the beauty of best ball. You don't have to put him in your lineup. You just feel like you have him on your bench, and I guess everyone's on your bench, and like if he scores the most points, he's gonna make your lineup. So
yeah,
that's what I hate the most about fantasy is just making your lineup decisions. And I guess do you feel the same way? Because I always feel like if I'm like 50-50 on a guy, I always pick the wrong guy. Like it's always like the guy I pick like gets hurt or something, or the guy I don't pick like he goes off for his like best game ever. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like what is your least favorite part of fantasy?
Look, because I'm in so many leagues, I definitely find there was a time where I was in like 40 leagues or something like that, and so doing player selections was a nightmare. And then I'd have to get up again at like 2 a.m. because the game started at 3 a.m. to make adjustments based on lineups and things like that. Wow. So that was always a nightmare. But I think the worst bit is having to like get up at 2 o'clock, 2:30 and adjust my rankings for any players that are inactive or injured or something like that. I think probably my least favorite part overall is like inactives in like the 4 p.m. window. That's just an absolute nightmare.
That's brutal for you. So what is that, like 5 a.m. for you?
Well, the problem is you can't take them out of your rankings for starters. So they ruin rankings when they could have announced a couple of hours earlier. And then I can never see them. Like I said, it's 5 a.m. for me, and I've already woken up at like 2 a.m. to do something for half an hour. It's just, and it's a Monday morning. It's a nightmare. Hate it.
I was about to say you should adopt my schedule and just be up at night. Yeah. But that doesn't work for you because you have a job. So I could see that being a nightmare. I complain about the London games, which I guess for you is fine. So anyway, we are up now. Right after this next pick, quarterbacks available. We have Darnold, Rodgers, Jones, Richardson. I don't know if any of those intrigue you, but we do need a third quarterback.
I think the guy behind us has a quarterback, has 3 quarterbacks, so I doubt he's going to take a fourth. So I would take Algier here, and then I would and then I'll come back and get a quarterback on the way back. I think I'll probably get done. Richardson has more upside though.
Yes, I agree. So I love Algier. No problem taking him. The next guy, so he takes Chubb and Gesicki. We are up. There's our running backs. So you said Richardson or who else?
Richardson has more upside. If you want to go for upside, I'd go Richardson. If you want to go safe, which I doubt you do, then I'd go Darnold.
Oh yeah, I'd rather Richardson. Like who's going to win a $2 million? Look, probably neither. But if it's one person, it's probably Richardson, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm also just going to shout out the fact that I love Cedric Tillman.
Me too. He's going way too late. Look, we already have 6 receivers, so we don't need one right now. If he fell to 16-11, I would love to take him. He's one of 2 receivers I like in this range, and the other one's going to give you some nausea, I think. But you remember, this is best ball, so it's different. The other guy I like is Alec Pierce, because in best ball you could never play him in redraft. But in best ball, he's going to have 3 games or 4 games where he goes nuts, and you don't have to make your lineup decision. He's just going to be on your team, and he's going to be in your lineup because he scores those amount of points. So if he was going like round 10, I'd say no, but like round 15, 16, like you get a guy who's going to spike week 3 or 4 times a year and just be in your lineup like that. You can't ask for more than that from a 15th round pick. So
totally agree. I also think Pat Frymouth going in the 14th round. He's like the 20th tight end off the board or something like that. That's insane.
I think people are just worried about the Jonnu Smith. And speaking of tight end value, Brenton Strange round 15 just went. Yeah, you should. I don't know if this is accessible for you in Australia, but it's unfortunate. I think you'd have a blast doing these drafts. I think you'd do very well in them.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it.
One of my favorite running back guys to take is Will Shipley. I don't know your thoughts on him. At 15-10, Kenneth Gainwell's gone. And we talked about like Barkley, he's amazing, but he also had a ton of touches last year. So even if he doesn't get hurt, like, the middle of the season, I could see them like kind of making sure he's going to be fresh for the playoffs. So and Alec Pierce just went, I could see them giving Shipley more touches. And also the Eagles are involved in a lot of blowouts. So Shipley, we saw this in the NFC Championship. Shipley comes on the field, runs for a 60-yard touchdown against the Redskins, who are not trying at all because they're getting blown out. Tillman goes 16-2. And Shipley, I don't know, like, what if Barkley goes down? Same thing. Like, if the same as McCaffrey, like Shipley is just going to skyrocket. Now he's not a known as Garendo. Like Garendo's a little more highly known because he actually played a substantial amount last year. But Shipley is someone I'm usually trying to target in like this round.
I think that makes perfect sense. My only concern is if there's an injury to Barkley, how much AJ Dillon do we see?
Oh, man, I don't know if he makes the team. Honestly, I think he sucks. I think he's look. I think he's probably higher than 50-50 to make the team, but I don't think it's a lock that he makes the team at all. I think he just sucks, and I think they might see how bad he is in practice and training camp, and they just might go with the younger guy. That
makes sense.
Yeah, we'll see. I could be wrong, but by the way, I don't know if like. We talk about guys with upside, like the guy with 0 upside who went round 16, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, what is he going to help you win any money at all? Like
that is awful.
He couldn't produce with Mahomes last year. Like what's he doing around 16? You need higher upside guys. All right, so Sam Darnold came back to us. We don't need a fourth quarterback. Does any running back stand out to you here? We only have how many? We have 5. We don't need another one necessarily, but we could take one. There's Ford, Giddens, Corum, Neal, Sanders. We need a second tight end. Cheeky Bang Bang, Schultz, Juwan Johnson, Ferguson, Hill, Theo Johnson, etc. I'm fine with waiting on them. And the receiver, we had Douglas, Allen, Wilson. We have 15 seconds. So what do you think?
I actually don't mind Blake Corum here. Okay. I think Taysom Hill's interesting because it's best ball, and obviously I know you love Higbee for later on at tight end. Pity all my favorite wide receivers just went.
Yeah. Receiver, there's one receiver I like in round 20, and you're probably gonna think I'm crazy, but we'll see. We can take Taysom Hill here. It's round 17. Let's go Taysom Hill.
I think Keenan Allen's the other one that's interesting as well.
Yeah. Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper are the two veteran receivers who are out there. Is any reason why you highlighted Allen over Cooper, or do you like him like similarly?
I think that Allen, when he last played, looked better than Cooper when he last played.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. Cooper was hurt last year, so maybe he bounces back. And he's a good route runner. I feel like the receivers who run routes very well, they're usually the ones who stick around longer than the other ones. Keenan Allen just went 17-04. But yeah, we could have taken Allen. There's a chance Hill would have fallen back to us, but usually there's someone who likes Hill. I didn't check tight end buys, so we have 6 and 11. So that's something to keep in mind, and like make sure your buys line up. Like you can take running backs and receivers at the same buys, but quarterbacks and tight ends, it defeats the purpose of drafting 3 if they all have the same buy. So that's something to keep in mind.
Have we seen Jordan Mason go yet?
Yeah, he went like round 10. 909 he went.
Oh gosh, that's appalling.
I think it's early too. if he went, where would you take? I mean, you mentioned around 17. Where would you take Mason ideally?
I mean, I feel like he looked like a bargain here, but I would have taken him maybe 15, 16 at the latest.
Okay.
Sorry, at the earliest, I should say.
I think I'm higher on him than you are, just because Aaron Jones has the durability question marks. And like if he plays, like he's behind a great offensive line. But so for me, like it would be like round 12, round 13 for him. So not like dramatically earlier, but is there any reason like why you're down on him, especially compared to like
I just feel like there's other guys with more upside. I feel like if we see an injury to Bijan, Algier just gets all the carries. If we see an injury to Cook, Davis just gets all the carries. I'm not sure what happens with Mason. I feel like he probably gets all the carries, but it's in Minnesota where he's probably at best going to be a running back too anyway, even if he were the starter. So I just think about who I would value more if they were the starter, and I think it would be a heap of other guys.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so anyone stand out to you here in like round 17? We have Miles Sanders. That's another awful pick with like no upside.
I was about to say Rashard Smith, but he just went off the board.
Yeah, he's another one. You mentioned him earlier. He's kind of intriguing to me. I don't think I've drafted him very much, but he's at least taken him a couple of times. So there goes Cheeky Bang Bang. So not that we were going to take him.
Who are the wide receivers that are available? Because I feel like
it
wouldn't be the end of the world to get one more.
So this is why we say Io Manor is always available here, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett, like Titans receivers are available if you'd like them. Not anymore. Io Manor just went. Slayton, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Cooker, Dontavian Wicks, Ray McLeod, Tutu Atwell, who I drafted if I get Stafford, Amari Cooper, Tank Dell is not going to play, Roman Wilson, not JC Horn. Who's Jay Horn? I forget. Jimmy Horn. Yeah. Let's see here. Chisholm, who's looked good in practice so far. Efren Chisholm. Juju's Mr. Devon Vele, Khalif Raymond, Cavante Turpin, Hunter Renfro, Deontay Thornton. We're up, by the way. That was very quick.
That's all awful. Amari Cooper, maybe.
Okay, let's take. There's Cooper. Okay, we're gonna take Cooper. Doesn't have a team right now, but and then we're gonna take our guy Higbee, if that's okay with you.
Done.
See, it's like round 19. Higbee's perfect, I think. Third tight, like look, third tight end. I think he's safe. He has spike week potential, as we saw in the 2 playoff games. And Stafford is going to want to throw to him. Because so now we can try to decide who's going to be our last pick. So what is our roster construction? We're almost at Ellie. We're at 3-6-7-3. 3-6-8-3 is pretty common as well. And you look at some of the other teams like 2-6-8-2 is pretty troubling. Like if he gets an injury in one of the positions, he's done. Then usually everyone else is kind of saying 2-6-7-3, only 2 quarterbacks. Same here. Sometimes you see teams with like 4 quarterbacks, and like that's what are you doing? But usually it's that kind of setup. So we can kind of like decide who we're trying to draft in round 20. As I said before, there are actually like 2 receivers I'm targeting in round 20, and before I mention them, are there like any Tutu Atwell just went? So any like high upside guys that like off the top of your head, you're like, okay, he's probably gonna suck, but in this sort of format, I only need 2-3 great weeks out of him, and like the rest could be zeros. Does anyone stand out to you as far as that's concerned?
I mean, it's interesting. You could go like really risky and someone like, I don't know, what do you think of Arian Smith for the Jets, for example?
So I've drafted him. I've only drafted him when I've drafted Justin Fields. Usually the round 20 pick correlates with one of the quarterbacks I have. But here, like who's our quarterback? So we have McCarthy. So someone like Ty Felton would make sense for me. And then Herbert. We saw Trey Harris go, but Keandre Lambert Smith is someone who stands out to me too. He's a big receiver who runs fast and he blocks well, so he could be on the field quite a bit. But it's pretty clogged at receiver. So I mean, it's round 20. There's also Mike Williams who could maybe do something, but he looked washed up last year, but he was coming up to torn ACL, so I think there's a chance that he does it better this year. But neither of those are like the two guys I'm like, okay, these guys have insane upside for like 3 weeks and might do nothing the rest of the year.
Ooh, interesting. It's not like Darius Slayton or something, is it?
No, although Slayton went 1808. Slayton does have that potential. Let's look last year at his stats. So he had what do you have? He had a spike week at 17.8. He had a spike week at 29.2. So this is kind of applies. Like, yeah. So that's what you're looking for, like late round pick. You want 2 or 3 of these sort of weeks where he gets in your lineup, and then like, look, it's round 20. You're not going to find anything great here. So that's basically what you're gunning for.
That makes sense. Not Brandon Cooks or something, is it?
No, it's not Brandon Cooks. One's a rookie.
Is Savion Williams?
No, not him. Restropro just won. It's kind of interesting.
That's interesting.
No, I'll give you a hint. One is let me see how old he is. My guess he's 28. If I remember. No, he's 30. Actually, he's 30. I was kind of surprised. I thought he was like 28. Okay, this guy is he's been around. He's been on a few teams. Last year he had an insane week. He actually had 3 really very good weeks. Ty Felton just won. And the other guy is I believe 4th round pick in this year. So he's done.
Are you talking about someone like one of the Patriots guys, or Alan Lazard, or I'm just naming 30-year-olds?
This guy was he played with a quarterback who got injured last year, but when that quarterback was healthy, he had a few big games.
Can't be Christian Watt. Wait, that's not even Christian Watson. That's a different Watson.
Yeah, Watson just won
it. Wait, nice. Surely not David Moore.
No.
Every 30-year-old I can find, I'm just shouting. Okay, hit me.
All right, Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
That's so obvious. Can't believe I didn't think of that. That's very obvious.
Look at what he did last year. So he did nothing. He barely played at the beginning of the year, and then he had 28.9 week. Yeah. And then 16, and then he got hurt here, 11.6. And Carr got hurt here. Sorry. He could have had a bigger games, and he had 9 and 8. Like, it's okay. He did well at the end of the season. And we're on the clock now. The other guy is Deontay Thornton, the Raiders receiver in round.
Oh, interesting. I was guessing that.
Out of those two, who would you rather have?
Valdes-Scantling, definitely. I love
that. Do you want to guess what percentage of leagues I drafted Valdes-Scantling?
Oh, it's got to be over 50%. No one else is taking him.
It's 30. Look, it's 30%. But he's my number 2 most exposed receiver at 30%.
Love that.
Look, it's round 20. Like, what are you gonna do?
I legitimately love that. I think that's actually really good.
Yeah, look, I just want 2 or 3 big weeks out of him, and he's done his job. You know, that's it. You can do zeros the rest of the year. I don't care. All right, so let's review our team, and then we can head out of here. So we started with 2 running backs the first 3 rounds: Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. And then once you do that, you don't have to draft running back until for a while, which, we drafted high upside guys. Ray Davis, James Cook holds out or gets hurt. Like, he's going to have a huge year. Jaden Blue has a chance to have some big games. Algier, I love Algier. He's one of my highest exposed running backs. Blake Corum, you can go either running back. Jarquez Hunter went a couple of picks for him. So those are running backs. I love running backs. Receivers look good too. Jackson Smith and Jibba, Cortland Sutton, Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, Brandon Ayuk. We'll see what the torn ACL has, but like I said, guys have come back from torn ACLs and been good. It's just very risky. And then Keon Coleman. And then we took a couple late round guys, Amari Cooper and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Our quarterbacks, we drafted middle rounds, McCarthy and Herbert. I think McCarthy has a lot of upside. Herbert is safer, but has some upside too. And then Richardson is the guy you want in best ball, like round 15, 16. He has insane upside. He might not do anything, but like, make sure he's your 3rd quarterback. And then tight ends, I love Hawkinson this year, 702. Like, we're considering him, like you mentioned him at I think 502. And I wouldn't even mind him there, but like 702 is insane value. I love him there. And then Taysom Hill, big upside if when he returns from the injury. And then of course Tyler Higbee, my guy at 1902. So any thoughts on this draft before we head out?
I think there were a couple of players that we talked about that went like right after we talked about them, where I think if we just adjusted slightly and taken quarterbacks a round or two earlier and not gone for someone like a Coleman, I think we would have ended up with a better team. But
Okay.
like we missed a couple of quarterback runs when I think maybe we considered getting them, which would have been really interesting if we'd done that differently. For example, when we took Keon Coleman, if we'd taken a Goff or a Williams, all of a sudden our team looks a lot better, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. So if, for example, we take Goff at 902, we still take McCarthy 1011. What receiver or what were you thinking 1102 that we would take instead?
I mean, I think there's I mean, Coleman's probably not making it back to us, but I feel like we just go a little bit heavier on receiver later on and make up for it that way.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it's I had a lot of fun drafting with you. It's always a blast to have you on the show. So you'll be on in a couple weeks, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Can't wait for that. We'll be doing hit rates for rookies, which was a great show last year. So I urge you guys to check that out. I also urge you guys to check out ffdfantasyfootball.com. Like I said, to start the show, Ben was #1 in accuracy for NFL mock drafts, and he's top 10 consistently in accuracy for weekly rankings. So definitely check out Ben's site. Do you want to talk about the site or anything else before you head out?
Oh, look, if you want good rankings, go to the site. But if your league's a little bit funky, I do also offer personalized rankings. So if your league has some strange settings where you feel like you're not really sure what player to pick at each position, I'll personalize rankings specifically for your league. Just got to hit me up at benwasley23@gmail.com or on Twitter or Instagram. Plenty of links there on the website as well to get your personalized rankings. That is by far the best way to win your league. I've had a lot of success with those as well.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching, commenting. Really appreciate you, except for this nimble nuts guy who chimed in. But we welcome all posters here. We don't silence anyone like he does. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be evaluating some football teams, but it's not exactly what you think. So I think you're in for an amusing show on Tuesday. Kenny will be back Wednesday. Not sure what we're doing Thursday, but Tom will be on Saturday. So full slate of episodes next week. And yeah, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. Check out walterfootball.com for tons of content. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to all you who are fathers out there. So yeah, guys, have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll